Welcome back to Don't Lift Off. Today I'm going to be speaking to a guy I first met in 1995 from Super One Karting. I later raced against this guy in 2008, 2009 in sports prototypes, 13, 14 years or so later. This guy had a profound effect on me from pretty much the moment I met him. The story I'm sure we'll go into of when we first met each other, but he certainly made a big impression on me when I first met him. He's one of the most interesting guys who I've met in my life, let alone instructing or racing. So he's an excellent racing driver, a good engineer, a good test driver, an excellent coach, very clever psychologically. I'm sounding like his manager, right? I hope you'll enjoy this conversation as much as I will enjoy talking to him, I'm sure. I always enjoy a conversation. We've talked as much offline as we have online. So enjoy this conversation. Ladies and gentlemen, I give you Mr. Bryce Wilson.
Well, if you want my proper history, what time you start working in the morning?
Fucking hell, man. I've just looked through some of those.
When you were, 18 or something?
Yeah.
I started a bit earlier than that. Oh, here he comes again. Oi.
Let him come in. Bring him into shot. That'd be hilarious. Oh, look at him.
Oi.
What an absolute beauty. What's his name?
Frankie. Frankie the Frenchie.
Frankie. Oh, he's beautiful.
He's a good lad, actually. Obviously, he's not like...
How old is he?
He'll be 3 now. He's huge for Frenchie, but... So tell me, what's been happening with you? Because I don't really know. You went off the planet for a wee while there, and I don't have much to do with anybody now, so everything I get second-hand, third-hand, and I feel like I'm in Greenland or Iceland or somewhere like that, out the way, and I'm only in Scotland.
Yeah. Well, so what's happened? Well, I've had a divorce. That was since I last saw you.
Well, I didn't want to say. I didn't want to ask. I didn't want to pry. I didn't know what happened. But I now see, obviously, that you're with somebody else. Amanda's with somebody else. Obviously something's went down there. So you're happy now, so?
I'm happy.
Good.
I think that I think that she's happy as well, and ultimately, from my perspective, I wish her well. Really, I mean, she's the mother of my children, and it wasn't easy. Like 2019, 2020. I was working for Andrew Cacaldi. Do you know Andrew Cacaldi?
Oh yeah. I know Andrew.
So, well, that's what kind of took me off the radar a bit. In fact, I just realised I'll put this on do not disturb. I went off the radar a bit because I was doing a bit of coaching, and obviously I had the kids, so that takes a lot of your weekends up. But then I got an opportunity to work for Andrew in place of, remember Tim Mullen? Tim Mullen.
Yeah, I remember Tim. Yeah, he used to race, didn't he?
Yeah, he raced.
What's GT?
Sorry, what did you say?
He raced
GT. Yeah. He raced Formula Vauxhall Junior at the same time as I did it in '96. Although I was in Class B, he was in Class A. But and then he went on to do Formula Vauxhall, and then he went on to do I don't know what else he did, but ended up doing GT stuff, like GT3 stuff.
Yeah.
And then he ended up Andrew took on the contract running the pure McLaren program for McLaren Automotive, and then making their GT cars. And then Andrew wanted to, he was based at Colville, where Andrew Cacaldi's workshop was at, and he wanted to move closer. He wanted to work closer to Silverstone, which is where he lived, or just down the road from Silverstone. And he got an opportunity to work for, I think, a guy called Anthony Cheshire at FF Corsa, and then he randomly, jokingly said, "Oh, we're taking on this Aston Martin contract to run their driving program." So he said, "There's a job here going here, Donny, if you're interested." And I was like, "Oh, okay, right." And then I was like, "Actually, I might be interested in doing that." And so one thing led to another. But I went down and had a chat with Andrew, and so I took on the contract as senior driver for the Aston Martin Racing Drivers Club, and that was basically like chief instructor, and that was like preparing these road going Aston Martins for Aston Martin for their, they had it was a European program, so we were going to places like Barcelona, Dijon, Silverstone, it was proper stuff. I mean, we had Max Verstappen doing passenger rides for us at Nürburgring. It was the busiest event we had, and that was kind of in conjunction with Nürburgring's Aston Martin Centre as well. And
heard that name somewhere before.
Nürburgring.
No, Max Verstappen.
Yeah,
that name before.
Do you know what he was? I didn't really. Well, I did speak to him on the day. All I asked him to do was put his headlights on for the day. He was completely off the radar. He was absolutely put as a passenger ride driver. He was like fast, leery, and in no one's way. He was just like the perfect passenger ride driver. Just cracked on. It was like no drama at all. He was absolutely perfect. But yeah, I mean, go on.
I like his style. I think he's. It's like. How can you put it? Every good driver, no, not good driver. Every driver I've ever known that's been a bit special has been disliked.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that from what I read, I don't know him at all, but from what I read and see and things, he's not the best liked person in the world. And I think it's very sad that the world is like that. I don't know if you've noticed.
I think he's very liked by the Dutch. The Dutch fans seem to like him.
Of course. But I mean, in all fairness, if we had a Scottish driver that was there, they would like him because they have to. It's a bit different with, I suppose, an English driver. But you just like you're supposed to support your national driver, aren't you? But I mean,
yeah,
I think that I don't know. Maybe it's different for you, but for me, definitely, people who are super good tend to be disliked. It's like, it's like you're allowed to be good up to a level, but if you're better than that level, then you need to be brought back into line again. And if you can't be brought back into line, then you're disliked for it. They start looking for things you do wrong rather than things you do right. That's how it appears to me, anyway.
Do you know, that's what I've always liked about you, Bryce, and I liked you from the very moment we met, even though you were completely unusual to me, let's say. So, well, that's not a bad place to start, I reckon. So let me retell that story. So I told this during lockdown when Lars Sexton was inviting people to just tell us some old racing stories, and I basically said that I gave the stories, a couple of stories actually, but one of them was the first time I met Bryce Wilson, and that was when I remember it very clearly. It was when you came to, so we were doing 100C 1995, and it was in the middle of a championship, I think. But anyway, it was a PF. It was the year that PF opened, PF International, Fletcher's Bakeries.
It was the GP plate.
Was it the GP plate?
Yeah, it was. Is it the Grand? Is there a Grand Prix or a?
I don't think it was the GP plate. I think this was a Super One round. In my mind, you might be right.
I'm not 100% sure. It was a long time ago. But
I just remember that at the time PF had just got literally mud on. It was on the side of the track. There was no grass. It was literally just being seeded. And so in 100C at that point in time, the quick guys were myself, Chris Cox, Carl Breeze, Ricardo Massano was kind of there or thereabouts. There was John Daltrey was around who ended up winning the championship a few years later, but he was a bit hit and miss, but he was quick on his day. And then up rocks this what I would describe as hairy ass biker that looks like Lemmy from Motorhead, like long hair, beard, like 20 years or so older than us.
Yeah.
And goes half a second quicker than everyone on a chassis that no one had heard of. It was a really unfashionable chassis. Now tell me what chassis you were. Was it like a Davidson's or something like that? What chassis were you on?
It was an Anderson. The gearbox guys, they made a Class 1 chassis. And
the very fact that you call it Class 1 just ages it straight away there.
Oh, right, okay. Well, I'm old. To me, it's
I know. I know.
Yeah, it was an Anderson. It was an odd thing.
That's it, Anderson, yeah.
The best out there, but it obviously wasn't a bad car.
Well, you had a good engine as well, so you were running Jag engines, weren't you? Is it JAG or Jag? I could never work out. Was
Jag.
What do you call it? Jag.
In all fairness, it was a one-off race kind of thing for me because somebody had bought a car to run somebody, and halfway through the season, they decided not to race it anymore. And they'd already entered for the race and all the rest of it. And they said, do you want to race this car? Because I'm going down anyway. I said, I've never sat in a car for years. And it's, oh, come on, we can have a good laugh. He said, it's good gear. It should be all right. So I went down and carry on with your story.
Well, tell me, did you do a test session, like half a day's test session at somewhere like Lark Hall beforehand?
No.
Because right, so I remember later that year we were running with Andy Cox, and we ended up running with Paul Carr for one reason or other. I ended up running with Paul Carr. Now, Paul Carr was a right miserable bastard, but I really liked him actually. I didn't understand him. I'd spent 3 years trying to steer clear of him because he looked such a miserable bastard. But then once I got to know him, I understood him a lot more, and his engines were excellent, and his his knowledge about chassis and stuff was excellent. And I remember Paul Carr saying he's just rocked up, and I thought he said he'd done one test session at Larkhall, like half a day's testing at Larkhall. He's just rocked up and made you all look fucking stupid. You may as well go home. You may as well all go home, is what Paul Carr said. And I was like, yeah, he has. You were half a second quicker than anyone. And the first time we'd seen you, and we were all like fighting for a national championship at that point. It's like, who the fuck's this old boy?
Yeah.
And then I remember seeing like an interview with you in Karting magazine. I was like, actually, he's really eloquent, this guy. I really quite like him. So that was my first Bryce Wilson experience.
And it never put you off?
No. The opposite. The opposite. I was like, I just thought he really interesting, and I've always thought that since. And so
I think that's the first time I realised that you've got to be on it all the time, because I remember after the first session at PF, I could hardly breathe, and my hands and these bits were killing me. And it wasn't until later on, as the day went on, that it started to become easy again. The head was never a problem.
Yeah.
Never. In fact, I did a race, the Oak Plate, about 4 years ago now, at Fullbeck.
Right.
In the retro. Have you heard of retro racing?
Yeah. Ed Peed and Ben Klukas do that, I think, in TKM. Which class did you go into?
I did.
Or is it all one class now?
No. There's lots of classes. I did international, which was 88 to 90, something like that. It was no side
proper
things.
No way.
And that was good. I thoroughly enjoyed that. In fact, I intend to go and do some races this year as well, because I'm getting bored. I'm really bored, and my head's sharp. My head's still sharp. I need to get fit. And even if I was fit, I'd still need to get race fit. You listen to me,
race fit, yeah.
man, and I'm not talking about going away and having some fun. I'm talking about racing again, so I'll need to get fit and all the rest of it. It doesn't go away, does it? It doesn't.
No, it doesn't. Well, it's funny. I mean, part of one of the reasons why I started this podcast is because, well, I'm 50, so I've just turned 50, and I suppose I've been in the motorsport wilderness for quite a while, and I'm thinking, well, right now with I see my kids every other weekend, and that's a commitment, and I can't really change that for one reason or other, which I won't go into now. But
Yeah.
it means that I can't do racing.
Yeah.
Essentially, I can't commit to a racing championship. I could go and do odd races, and I'm restarting in life, and I mean, with sort of marriage and all the rest of it. And my daughter actually is karting. So Scarlett is karting at Teesside.
Yeah, I saw that on the internet.
Yeah, and she should be racing again, I think, at Teesside again this year, and she's 13 now, believe it or not. It's like time ticks on. And Yeah, and I just thought it's something we can do. Is and you were on my list. You were already on my list. I had a list. I list of probably about 100 people. I was like, I'd love to talk to Bryce, and I'm so glad that you've said yes to do this, because you probably did. You say Rob Garofal's
I did
podcast?
I liked that. He's a good guy, Rob. I had a few races against him when we were doing V2V.
Mm-hmm.
And I think, in all fairness, Rob and I were slightly, at that time anyway, in front of the rest of the field, and it looked like the Brits were kind of dominating. Well, I suppose we were, really.
Yeah.
We had some good races, actually. He's a good driver, Rob.
Yeah, he said this one. Yeah, I think he's underrated. Yeah, I think he's underrated. Well, he did a very good job in 2008, when, or was it 2009? He won the British Speed thing, and he won. Yeah, it was the British Speed V2V it was initially, and then it turned into Speed Series, and yeah, he blitzed that in the Norma and at a canter. To be fair, no, he's a good guy, and he's fallen on his feet with the whole McLaren thing as well. And fair play to him.
Yeah. Well, you've got to be there to get the breaks, haven't you? If you're sitting in the house watching the TV, you're going to get no breaks. But he's a good guy. I think he's a good driver. Competed against him on a number, close stuff.
Yeah, he said you were like nose to tail. Was it? Where was the race that you were nose to tail for the whole race?
Oh, there was one. Yeah, Estoril. Yeah, that was a good race, actually. Coming to back markers. I've always been very good at passing, whether it be car or car. I've always been very good at that. And whenever he got back in front, as soon as we came on the back markers, I'd get through again. The Norma was the Norma was the better car at that time. Not a lot better. We had our cars working really, really well. But
yeah. And you were in the Ligier then, were you?
Yeah. He had a slight edge, but because the grids were so big, there was like 60 odd cars on the grid, so you were almost constantly coming across cars, and that was
to
get back on him again, and I had to get back through again so that he couldn't get away. I can't remember how the race ended. Probably, well, he had a teammate and I had a teammate, so it's.
Yeah.
At some point they took over and whatever happened. But I think we were miles gone. Oh.
Can you see that picture I've just put up on the screen there?
I can. Where did you get that?
I've just dug it off the internet. I don't know what year that is though. That year, is that the V? Is that V2V? The V2V one?
Yeah, that's the British V2V.
Okay,
yeah.
And
with
there's the European one.
Yeah, I think that's Spa. I think that's coming through the chicane.
That's it. Yeah, it's through the chicane, isn't it?
Yeah, that's a good photograph, that, isn't it?
Yeah.
Good driver.
Yeah, that was a proper championship, that proper little
Yeah.
championship. I mean, the speed series that we did. I'll just stop that a second. The speed series that we did, it didn't have as many cars on the grid. It was quite good at Donington, and it just gradually, and watered down through the years. But through the year, I should say. But
It was a
yeah,
shit.
no, we'd heard about the legendary V2V grids because Nick Padmore did a bit of that as well, didn't he?
That's right. Yeah. He came in when it already started a decline across there as well. And when we joined it, there was over 60 cars. I think the grid was 65 maximum, and if you didn't register and enter for the whole year and pay the money up front, you weren't guaranteed an entry. That's how incredibly busy it was. It's a fantastic championship. Honestly, it's the best racing that I think I've ever been involved in. The cars were proper cars. I mean, you've driven one. And it's, for me, they were the best value for money. Was it the bang for the buck or whatever?
Yeah. It's like a mini Le Mans championship. Did it have GTs in it as well when you were doing it in Europe?
The first year, yes. No. For the 12-hour race, it had GTs in it as well. Actually, that's a story in itself. When we got involved with the V2V, we bought a car from Ligier, which was the 12-hour was at Dijon. Not Dijon, Magny-Cours. And Ligier was based at Magny-Cours. So we picked the car up on the Monday, we hired the garage, and we did all the bits and pieces to it to get it race ready. Went out, tested, and went out and won the 12-hour. Straight off.
No way.
Yeah, honestly.
Straight off. Who were you sharing with?
Ali McKeever.
That was with Ali, is he? Was it?
Do you know Ali?
Well, yeah, I mean, I only know him from because he did the Speed Series, and I kind of knew him to say hello to. But
I have to say, he was, of all the gentleman drivers that I raced with, and he was a gentleman driver because it was his car, he was paying. I think he could have done something in cars if he hadn't been a businessman, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
I think I was, in all fairness, I was a bit spoiled because I think out of all the guys that I was racing against, I had the best partner. And we did.
Yeah, because he was somewhere, he was only like a second or so, a second, maybe 2 seconds max. He's like the 2 second is the golden window. If you can get an within 2 seconds of your pace, that you know you're somewhere near. And remember, I raced with Barry Gates. He would he would often be within 2 seconds, but he would often be off the track as well.
Yeah, I have to say I remember that. It was like he didn't know where the edge was, and more important to get to the time than it was to finish.
He was learning. I mean, he was a red-blooded male that just wanted to win. And to be fair, when that was channeled, and that was my job, was to channel that. When it was channeled, he was really, really good. I mean, I remember first time going to Thruxton in Radicals, and it was about a tenth away from the pros pace. It was just like, right, Barry, the whole lap is flat apart from these 2 chicanes, so just brake really, really late and try and get an apex. He was just dynamite because he was just like, oh, it's flat, is it? What, first lap when it's cold? Yeah. Just go flat out. And it's big man all the way around the back. Well, he's nearly on pole outright. Excellent.
I have to say. It was a good laugh, though.
Oh, he's great. He's great, Barry. I spoke to him actually. Well, I spoke to him on text message because we just did a trip over to Geneva, just a social trip, and I just messaged him to say, do you know any coffee shops around here? And he was like, fucking coffee shops, why would they be of interest? Well, he didn't actually say that, but that's the vibe that I got. It's like, why would I be fucking interested? I'm interested in golf courses and cars, not coffee shops.
I'm saying, is that when you went to Davos?
That's correct. Well, we'll come on to that later because I do want to talk about this. So I made a list of things to talk about. One of the things, actually, let's go back to the karting. So you rock up this what I would class old boy. I mean, what sort of age would you have been when in 95?
You were how old?
So I was well in '95. So I'd have been 21. 20. I was getting on a little bit for karting, but
You were 21. And what age are you now?
I'm now 50. So that was, yeah,
Oh,
29 years ago.
so I'm 15 years older than you. So I was 36. I was old.
Right. Okay.
I was an old fart then when I think about it.
Let's see if I can. I don't know how easy you'll see that. Can you see the picture of that cart? That was the cart that I was racing, and how easy that is for you to see. But when I show you the pictures in a second that you sent me, can you see that? That was number 18, green plate, 100C, rotary valve, side pods, and NASO panel, as it was back in the day. Now,
Yeah.
if I go on to look at some of the stuff that you sent me, and I'll just go zipping all the way up to one of the very top pictures. That's where you started, right?
That was my second race. That was at Lark Hall.
Was that Lark Hall?
That was Lark Hall. Before
That doesn't
that
look
was the circuit at Lark Hall. There's been a number of circuits before the circuit that you would have raced at.
right. Right. So that was a different circuit. It doesn't even look like a circuit.
Well, we've actually still got that chassis. It's we restore things now. Now we do powder coating and cerakoting and all sorts of things. It's sitting there to be restored, but we've been that busy. I've never got a chance to get round to it. Don't have the
No
engine
way.
anymore, but still got the car.
Wow. What sort of year was that then, Bryce?
Well, at that time you had to be 13 years old to race, and my old man thought that I should be racing a bit sooner than that, so I was 12 there. But my old man
Right.
sent me for a license and said I was 13, which gave me a
Fair
problem
play.
when I started racing cars, because I had to then go and get it done properly. Oh, that was a mess. Anyway, that's another story.
Huh.
But I was 12 there.
And there's some proper old school stuff that you
Yeah,
sent here.
I was 20, 21 there. 22. If you
Right.
look, I can
Yeah.
drive a car, but I can't put my shoes on the right feet.
That's hilarious. I didn't even see that. That's amazing. And I love this one. This is that's proper. That would be '70s then. Is that you? Is that your brother? I'm guessing
Yes,
you've got a brother, have
that
you
was
then?
the first World Championship. It was actually Mike Wilson's sister that took that photograph. She sent that to me the other day. So that would have been 74. 73. I got picked for the British team. The first year I was in karts.
Wow.
So it must have been, we started when I was 12. You did 4 races as a novice. So it must have been the following year that I got picked for the British team, because it was in Holland. And we had a real problem. We had nothing but problems at the start, but they were all our own doing. It's like when in Europe, you had to be 14 to race.
Right.
And I was only 13. But they thought I was 14 because I'd started a year early, which was all right till we got there. And they didn't want to see your kart license. They wanted to see your passport. And in my
Right.
passport, it said that I was 13, not 14.
Right.
So my brother, the one you can see waving, he went
Showing that he's going to win
on.
the Battle of Agincourt.
He went and signed on with his passport, and they never noticed that it was the wrong name. They were just looking at I don't know what they were.
Brilliant.
But that was a relief. We went all the way out there, and to not get a
So
race.
did your brother compete then as well, or was
That
he just helping?
I've got an older brother than him, and I suppose you could say my oldest brother won the Scottish Championship 3 times, But that guy there that you can see waving, he must be the most successful Scottish kart driver, because he won the Scottish Championship 7 times on the Dunt.
Really?
Yeah, honestly, on the Dunt. And I know that George Bett, I think, in 210, I think won it either 6 or 7 times, but not on
Was
the
that
Dunt.
in class 4, what you'd call class 4? Is that in gearbox?
Yes, yeah.
Right.
But he
Bloody
was
hell. I didn't even know
he
you had
wasn't
a
a
brother
gearbox.
that raced.
George Bett was a gearbox guy, but that brother, it was class 1. Um, he didn't win it in juniors, so it was all senior stuff. But he only raced 2 or 3 times a year, not thinking that he was going to go and win it, and went out and won the thing. He was a good driver.
Right.
He still is. Well, he never got a chance. Both my brothers gave up to support me because they thought I was a business.
Right. That's mega. There's another photo. I'll just fast forward through to another photo I noticed actually that I just found on Facebook. This one. What's that? Is that to do with racing? It looks like it is.
Yeah, that's the Scottish Championship. I think it's the only Scottish Championship that I actually won. That's my brother. That's the one that was waving to us. He just won the Scottish Championships in 100 International, because at that time you had 100 National and International, and I just won it in juniors. And that's my mum in the middle.
So you're in juniors then?
Yeah, I look like an old man.
Yeah, nice waistcoat, mate. Looking very dapper there.
But that was the David Essex time, wasn't it? You might not have even heard of him. So
I know David Essex. Hold me close, don't let me. And
that's
the other one is so my CB handle was Silver Dream Racer.
all right. Okay.
I was taught in the right way, mate. That was my CB handle. Because my uncles. Well, you remember my uncles?
Yeah.
I don't know if you do remember my uncles.
No.
My mechanics.
Yeah. Yeah.
My and they were all what I used to call scramble bike riders, right? So they were motocrossers, as it's known as nowadays. And so they were all into two strokes like from kids, and that I think that's one of the things that gravitates me towards this actually, because it's like this totally reminds me of my uncles that growing up, and that they were absolutely my heroes, you know.
Well, I can understand where you're coming from, because I don't know life without karting. I have no idea what I would have become. I maybe don't want to know what I'd have become, but it was something that that's not me. That do you know who that is?
No, I thought that was you.
That's not me. I don't know how that's in there. Did you get that off me? Ah, you did. That
Yeah, I
file
think so.
in there. Um, that guy there is probably the best driver that should have won a lot of things, didn't, because the closest he could get to the weight, I think, was 10 kilos. Whether it was in juniors, that was the closest he could get. He really was a good driver. And he's probably the most successful father of drivers, whose both his sons went on to win the British Kart Championship, and one of them went on to race for Force India in Formula One. That's Louis de Resny.
Oh, is that Louis?
Yeah, somebody sent that,
Huh.
and I sent it to him, and he was. We had a good old laugh about it. That's Louis de Resny.
That's funny. I met Louis once at Wombwell. Obviously, his reputation, not Wombwell, at Rowra. His
Yeah,
reputation preceded him
uh,
because my ex raced against him in Formula Ford 1600, the Northwest Formula Ford.
yeah.
And here's a funny thing. So I was Paul de Resta's examining race license instructor
All right.
at Silverstone. And he was in a 306 GTI. And the main thing I remember about that was we were just about to do the race license test, which basically consisted of doing 2 laps without any, the instructor saying anything. And he actually spun me the lap before. Literally, he was about to start the lap, and he spun me at Stowe. But he didn't actually lose control. Well, he kind of did lose control, basically, because he wasn't used to front wheel drive. The car, it was damp. and it'd gone in a little bit quick and then went in without any throttle at all. And it started to slide and he just gathered it all up on the steering. He put no power on at all. So basically, he just ended up pointed at the apex stationary. And I was like, next time, a bit of power.
Yeah.
But anyway, considering he qualified fourth for the British Grand Prix about 4 years later, then I think I passed him. I thought he was all right.
Yeah, well, that's who that is. I'm sorry, I don't know why that was in that file. It's not the file I've got. That was obviously in there.
No, that's great, man. It's
honestly, Louis de Resta, if he hadn't been such a fatty, I suppose, he could have. He was every bit as good as his boys, honestly. But he was just so heavy that he was unbeaten to nothing from the word go. But drive, yeah, he could drive.
A good driver. And this is back to you again, I'm guessing.
Yep. Yeah, that was I'd rocked up to Knockhill used to have a circuit that went through the pits and down the main straight and then back up into the pits again. And a few chicanes and things in it. And
right.
I rocked up to Knockhill. I'd heard there was a kart race on. And that kart there is actually Louis de Resta's. He raced in 100 National because he was a little bit overweight, may we say. And he said, here, you're racing. So that's why there's two number plates on it. One's green and one's yellow. And it's not not my suit. We borrowed all that stuff, and that's what you did then.
Yeah, just helped each other out, I suppose. It's probably quite a small community. And where's this from? This looks like literally something out of a Rolex like advert or something like that.
Well, how old do you think I was there? I've often looked at that and thought, it doesn't. It looks like me.
Well, you look about 40, but I'm guessing that's you're younger.
I was in juniors. I could have only been 15 there. It
did you wear goggles?
At that time, yes.
That's amazing.
Yeah, at that time, I was, what that would be, 74, 75?
I was born in 74.
There you go.
And I feel like that makes me feel young, actually. Thanks, Bryce. So that was an unexpected. That's an unexpected bonus.
Oh,
so
sorry about that.
So tell me, I'd heard that you'd won the. Did you win like the World Cup or something like that? Because that was kind of the Chinese whispers were going around the paddock when you rocked up and were just ballistically quick straight away on your first day. I was like, who the fuck's this guy? Oh yeah, he was a World Cup winner, 1978 or something like that.
No, 1975 I won the Junior World Cup, but it wasn't the World Championship. It was the World Cup, which was
okay.
It was a British event, but it looks good on a CV, and it's good when people say it. But now you've spoiled all that.
Yeah, sorry. It would be a dreadful shame if someone actually put this on the internet and spoiled that mystique that we've had in the last 29 years, 30 years now.
It's still there. It's still true.
Yeah.
However, there you go. That's from Womwell. That's the pit corner at Womwell, coming onto the straight.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. I know where you mean. What year was that then?
Oh, dear.
Late 70s again?
Well, you can tell by the shoes, because every 3 years we used to get a new set, because by the third year there was no bottoms left in them, and they used to get taken. Yeah. That's the things we had to do then. So that would have.
You've got the same helmet design that you had when I raced against you 30 years later.
Had that helmet design since 70s. Yeah. I think that looks like the first motor racing suit that I ever had. And I think I came back to do a race, because that looks like a cloth suit. and nobody had cloth suits then.
Yeah, because they were all leather suits for back
Yeah,
there. Was it even in Class 1 it was leathers
yeah,
as well, was it?
it was leathers. Everything was leathers. And that, God, when would that be? 80? No. Yeah, it would be 80, 81, something like that.
So did you have a break from karting, or where did you race karting up to? Because the other stuff I've seen here, so that I'm just seeing at the bottom of there, it says like 88 down at the bottom here.
Right.
So I'm guessing this was a little bit later then.
Yeah. Well, what happened was I got picked up by a chap in Glasgow called Lawrence Jacobson. He reckoned that I could pedal a bit, and he wanted me along. He said to my dad when I was 15, "Bring him along, and we'll give him a run in a car, and if he's any good, we might do something." So when I was just before I was 17, took me along, had a run in the car. Absolutely blew the guy away. Got somebody down called Robin Smith because he couldn't believe how quick we were to drive the car, because he thought, no, there's something not right. Robin Smith won Le Mans. Robin Smith was a good driver. However, Robin Smith wasn't as quick as me, and that was the first time I'd sat in the car. In fact, one of the pictures that I've sent to you,
Go back to it.
a white car with number 35 on it, I think. A Le Mans type car. It was a Chevron. Oh,
There you go.
that's the one. That's the car. That's the first car I ever sat in.
Oh, really? So this was before the F2, the F3 stuff.
Yeah, that was the first car I ever sat in for him to assess whether I was able to drive or not. And I could have only been 17. That was some car. I can still remember it. Yeah. It's quite strange because words are all meaning but have no feeling. It's like, I can remember clearly he gave me a rev limit of 6,000 RPM, and I went out there and I did, I don't know, 10 laps. I'd never beaten the circuit before, never driven a race car before, so 6,000 RPM, and that was great. And I was sitting there, whoa. I'd driven a Lotus Cortina and I thought, God, this is quicker than the Lotus Cortina. And then he gave me a rev limit. I'd done well, so he gave me a rev limit of 7,000 RPM. And I thought, oh, it's quicker again. And I was just feeding myself in, being sensible and whatever. Didn't want to upset him. Scared.
Is it BDA engine?
It was a BDG.
G?
Yeah, 2 litre.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then he said to me, right, okay, you've done really well. In fact, it was 5,000, 6,000, 7,000. He says, I'm going to let you take it to 10,000.
Fucking hell.
I think the
Excuse my French.
limit was 11.5, 12, something like that. He says to me, we're going to let you take it to 10,000. We're going for lunch soon. I want you to do 5 or 6 laps. And
where was this at?
Knockhill. It was
Knockhill, sorry.
Knockhill. And went out, cruising around, got onto the back straight. It hit 7,500 RPM, and it sunk me back in the seat. And that's what I mean by, words have no. I can't give you the feeling. I can only give you the words of how it felt. It blew me away. I went straight into the pits. I says, no, I can't drive this. This is ridiculous. How can anybody race this? It
was so quick.
It was just, it wasn't really that quick. I mean, it's not near the cars.
It was a Chevron. What mark was it? Was it like a B19 or something?
No, B23.
B23. So it's a later one. I tested a B19 of Sandy Watson's around the Silverstone GP circuit, with the old Fast Abbey
Yeah,
fast bridge,
yeah,
and and at the time I was racing in, that was when I was doing the Speed Series, and I was really impressed with that car. Actually, I was like, this is super good engine.
yeah.
That was a BDG.
If you can imagine this snotty-nosed wee boy, and I honestly thought at 7,000 RPM it was like mega quick, and it
Yeah.
really did give me a fright. And I said, I'm not going back out. So we went for lunch, and they convinced me to get back in the car. I got back in the car, and just it was the best time of the day it could have happened, because when I got back in the car, I was absolutely on it. The thing still felt so quick, but I actually got into a rhythm, if you know what I mean.
Mm.
Just
Yeah.
It was wonderful. It was just the rhythm was there. I'd never had a rhythm like that before. In karts, it was all stop start very quick, intense.
Mm. Mm.
With this, it was I can't explain, but I'm having the feeling I had then. It's
I
great.
know what you mean. So, do you know? So, there's a friend of mine, guy called Neil Primrose, and
I know.
Neil's a drummer.
I know Neil. He came to us actually at one point. He was going to drive in the VDV.
Ah, right.
I know Neil. He's a good guy.
Well, he's lovely. He's absolutely lovely. But one of the conversations that we had, when he was, because obviously his thing is drumming, right?
Yeah,
And it's rhythm, and he said that motorsport is a rhythm sport.
yeah,
And I think he kind of equated it almost like to rowing. It's like you repeat the same thing and you build up this rhythm, and then you're looking for like, right, okay, a little bit later there, a little bit earlier there, a little bit more accurate there, and it's just repetition, isn't it? And it's repetition and then polishing.
yeah. Uh, to go at a pace which is sensible, you can get yourself into rhythm and maintain that rhythm. It's
Hmm.
For me, it was my first time in a car, and that's what I can remember from it. I'll never forget it. It blew me away. Absolutely blew me away. Just the grip and the power, and it was just outstanding. I've never had that experience, even from much faster cars. It was just awesome. Awesome.
So did you end up racing that car then?
I raced that car once at Longridge, but I'd been racing for a while when I raced it. The guy that owned it, Lawrence Jacobson, he parked it up and just put it away. I think it's worth a lot of money now. I don't know. I don't think he's still got it.
Oh yeah,
Uh,
B23s.
yeah, I would have thought so.
These look all sports car stuff. I don't know if you can see that on there. That's Alton, isn't it? Is that Alton?
Yeah.
No, no. Is it Alton or is it Zandvoort? I can't actually work. Is that Alton Park Gold Cup or something like that?
Ooh, don't know.
Is that Alton Park?
Look,
Yeah, I think it is, isn't
park
it?
for me.
Yeah.
It does.
Yeah, it's Cascades, isn't it? It's Cascades into Foster's.
I'm not very helpful here. Um, I that was I'd walked away from motorsport um, when I was in F3. That's another story. It's something I'll talk to you about that offline. But uh, it, it's a bit sad, really. Anyway, I'd walked away from it, and then I'd got the opportunity. Another opportunity. I was asked back to drive the works Chevron. Chevron had gone, had closed. Dick Bennett had died in a hang gliding accident, and then it was taken over, but it eventually went to bust, and it was bought over by um, Robin Smith, Simpson Motorsport,
Right.
and they got in touch with me and asked me. Kurt Team was in the car. Now Kurt Team was, I think he was Danish.
Right.
He was a Dane, good driver, but he wasn't getting anywhere with the car, and he'd left, and they asked me to come along and drive it. And I said I hadn't driven for a while and I hadn't driven anything like that. Doesn't matter. But we actually did have some success with the car. So that was the B52 Chevron. It was a Sports 2000.
B52. Right, okay. And that's what, just going back to F3. So you went from karts and like, well, I don't necessarily need to know the politics of stuff, but what did you, how was the progression? How did it go? So you tested the B21, no, 23, did you say? And then how did you end up in, say, this?
Right.
Is that an F2 car?
That's an F3 car.
F3 car?
Yeah. That's
Were you were teammates with Fluxy, weren't you, at one point?
Ian Taylor.
Oh, you were teammates with Ian Taylor, were you?
With the Roger Evans rope. Um, that we did the test in October at Knock Hill, and Lawrence went out and he bought the F2 Chevron, the B29 Chevron. He said, "We're not going to go Formula Ford." He reckoned I was too good. Just get stuck into this and we'll go. Right, okay. At that time, full of bravado I was, and yeah, no problem, and you know how it is. And over the winter, we polished the car to within an inch of its life. And then the first race was Croft.
I think I might have some pictures of that. I'm sure I've seen this car at Croft.
First race was Croft, so we went down to do a test day. And the test day was on the Monday or something. Arrived there. We'd had the car for 5 months, and when we got there, it wouldn't start.
No way.
We couldn't get it going. So it was like, well, we're there. I'd only driven a car once. That's it. That's the car.
Is that Croft there?
No, that's Singleston.
Ah, wow.
We didn't want to waste the time being there, so Lawrence went to the people who were organising it and asked if we could do a couple of laps in the truck. So we did a couple of laps in the truck to see where the track went, which was great. It was enough for me to go home, and I knew that it was a left next and a right or whatever. Croft was different then to is now. So you've got sunny in and sunny out now, yeah.
Yeah, but it was just into a right 90, right? Was it in the down the old runway?
Yeah, sunny in, you went right, and then you went along the runway, and you came out at the bit at the end of the pit straight now.
Yeah.
And
was it left then when you came out at the end of that runway, left into what's now Clairvaux?
Yes, yeah, and it was as bumpy then as it is now. However,
really?
we went there. We arrived there on the race day. They'd found out there was something wrong there was something in the electrics where it was sapping the power.
Right.
And we went out for practice, and at that time you had qualifying, and it was 10 minutes. And
really?
I'd 15 minutes. I can't, 10 or 15 minutes. I can remember thinking I hadn't even driven this car. And I was 17 at this point. I was shitting myself. All the bravado had gone and left a pile of shitting. That's about the size. Anyway, got in the car on pole, straight off.
No way.
Honestly.
First race.
And it came in, and everybody was talking about it, and that was great, except me. I thought, what have you done? Because now I had to go out and perform. I'd made my own back.
Yeah.
So went out, hadn't done a start in one of these cars, and went out, did the warm up lap, and I'm asking, right, what do I do now? What do I do now? Right, okay. It wasn't lights; it was a flag, and I can remember the flag went down, and I lit this thing up, and going into the first corner, I was 13th.
No way.
Honestly,
Did you spin it up or nearly stall?
no, spun it. It was just sitting there. I was doing what would you call them? A smoke, whatever it is they
Burnout.
do in tires. Um, uh, so that was fine. I was 13th going into the first corner. I can remember it clearly. And we ended up coming through, getting fastest lap and winning the race on the last lap. And
Did you? So you came back to win?
Yeah, honestly.
No way.
I didn't know that after you took the checkered flag, you were supposed to go round and stop at the line and get the flag to go round and all this. I just went.
Oh, did you? Is that what you're supposed to do back in the day? Was that the etiquette?
Yeah. And I just went round and into the pits, up to the back of the truck, got out the car. I didn't know that there was a parc fermé and all this carry on.
Yeah.
Got out the car, got into the back of the truck, and I started taking the suit off, and I'm standing there and I'm pulling on my trousers. I was suddenly aware that there was somebody behind me at the back of the truck, and I turned round and there was a crowd like you wouldn't believe. And there was, who was it that was there from Motorsport? Give me some names.
You've got people like Nigel Roebuck. I'm trying to think of who would be there. It'd be sort of where early 80s. I don't know. Matt James would be the man to answer that one.
Anyway, and he said, I am whoever from Autosport. Who the fuck are you? That was his words. I thought, oh no, I've done something wrong. And the guy that owned the car, Lawrence, came and he kind of, no, it's fine, it's fine. I was about in tears. I really thought I'd done something wrong.
Done something wrong.
Then from then on, it went downhill. No, it was good. I just seemed to take to it like a duck to water. It was,
yeah.
It seemed easy. I went away from that event, obviously as high as a kite. So was Lawrence. He was as high as a kite. But one thing led to another, and I became the Great White Hope very quickly. That was before, that picture there was before.
Oh, sorry. Let me go back to that.
Before the first race.
Oh, shit.
Oh,
was it? That one is?
That was before the first race. You can tell because
17, straight into F2.
Yeah. You can tell that's before the first race. The car's still straight. Yeah, I like to myself.
Well, you've clearly had talent from a young age. That's really impressive.
I did find it easy. Kept waiting on this thing coming from the side because it can't be as easy as this. That sounds terrible. I don't mean it like that. I don't mean it in a bad way. But it just fitted, if you know what I mean. I felt like I'd been doing it for a long time. The edge was, I think because I was able to drive over the edge, and I knew from karts that when you drive over the edge it's slower, you've got to drive just inside the edge. Because I was able to drive over the edge, I could drive over the edge and come back to the edge.
Yeah, and you can get that very quickly.
Yeah, instantly. It was, I suppose, right through my career I could do that, which I think was always something that helped me. It also made me very good in changing conditions because you could feel for things. I obviously just had a good feel for it.
Yeah. And so you went back for some of those. Let's see if I can get this get the screen sharing again. You went back to looks like karting for whatever reason. You got finished in F3, I'm guessing, and then went in back into. Sorry, I'll try and drag this up back into karts because this the is it that what? So this one is obviously a lot later. So is this when you'd gone back into karts now?
Yeah, I'd got back into karts. That was, oh dear, I must have been 40 there. Yeah.
No,
Yeah,
no, no, because you it wouldn't have been that old. 30, did you say, or 40?
I said 40, but maybe.
No, I don't. I think it was younger because that's 88, and if you were 37, we just worked out you were 37 in 95. It would have been younger than that then.
Oh yeah, yeah, you're right. You're right. 30.
Because this is so side pods. This is early 90s, I reckon, either late 80s or early 90s.
No.
So who's that in front of you? Is that someone like Graham Melville, someone like that? I don't.
No, that's fullback. Steve
Ogden or Steve Brogan or someone like that.
Steve Brogan.
Steve Brogan.
He was a good driver.
Simon Wright Racing Developments. And what are you on, a Techno?
I think I am. Yeah, it was the wrong kart that year. However, I must admit I enjoyed the karting. I didn't.
Do you know what I remember from you? So I think I gravitated towards you quite early because I thought this guy knows a little bit and he's a bit of a wily old fox, this old boy. And I was like, right, what can I learn from this guy? And I remember, so we were at Lark Hall, 95, and I can't remember who won the race. It might have been Carl Breeze, or I think it might have been Breezy who won the race. You finished second, I finished third, right on your tail. But I remember one thing that was very clear. I remember coming up to the hairpin and I was catching you, gradually catching you. And as you came out of the hairpin, you just doing that and looking back straight. And it was you sensing, hearing that there's a cart nearby without you giving the big old that. And I asked you about that afterwards. I was like, I could tell that you knew I was there, but you weren't getting distracted by that. And so we had that discussion about the psychology of looking behind you, looking behind you, looking behind you.
I think you're absolutely correct. There are times to look back without looking back, and there's times when not to. But what you said, the key thing there was distraction. As soon as you look behind yourself in a car, as soon as you look back, you've lost the plot. You're thinking back the way, not forward. For me, that was a standard thing where you would do it. At a new circuit, you would find somewhere where you could look back without looking back, coming out of a hairpin, somewhere tight, or you could look across the track and measure yourself against what the distance was with somebody, rather than looking back. It's just a distraction. It's just, when I see kids looking back, it's like, no, don't do that. It's going to go wrong now. I mean, I think when I think about coaching, there aren't very many coaches out there. There are an awful lot of people who have track knowledge. They can look at somebody and say, yeah, you need to go faster there, you need to go slower there. I don't see that as coaching. That's just track knowledge. A coach is somebody that takes a pupil, whether it be a grown up or a child, and assesses them, assesses their personality, and then works out what tools they have in their box. And go, right, okay, there's an abundance of this, there's not very much of that. And we start to feed it in. And you get them to do things that their confidence level can cope with. And that if it goes wrong, it's only going to go a wee bit wrong and not destroy their confidence altogether. And build them and build their confidence along with it. But I went to the Kart Championship last year, the one at PF. And I was shocked what I saw with the coaches and things. There was a group of them standing and they were giving them all.
Give it the fucking big fish, little fish cardboard box. I know.
It was embarrassing. They're coaches, and I thought, not coaches. They're just scaring the shit out of the kids to get them to go faster. That's what it seemed like to me.
Giving them information that they really should already know.
Well, there you go. Should already know. The kid or the kids, they have an amount of knowledge, and it's up to the coach to determine what knowledge he needs. You don't know what you don't know until you know. So the kids they're a sponge. They're waiting for you to tell them, and it's up to you to decide or assess what it is they need. And if it's a bit more aggression, or if it's a bit more whatever it is, I think you know what I mean.
Yeah, I do. I do know what it is. Well, it's the thought that goes back into it, and that's because your race is it's like a boxing match. I'm really interested in boxing, and boxing it's all about like any sport, it's about psychology first and foremost. You can go and win that boxing match before you even step in the ring. I mean, I watched Chris Eubank. He's got quite a good podcast, and he's a little bit out there. Is Eubank? But he's a very good warrior, very thoughtful guy, and he was like, races and any type of sport is almost won before you get actually sat in the seat or step in the ring or whatever, because it's the thought process and psychology that goes through it, and that's your brain starts and then the rest of your body follows.
Yeah,
but it's your brain that tells the rest of your body what to do.
Yeah, I totally agree. But for me, if I get a new pupil, I'll do a day's assessment, and we don't even need to be at the circuit. I just the personality, you feel for the confidence. You can tell by the way somebody walks whether they're there or not. I mean, it's about once you become aware of certain things, and that's what part of coaching is making them aware. Once you're aware of things, you can't help but see them or feel them or hear them.
Yeah.
But that's what filling the toolbox is for me anyway, is by teaching them what to be aware of and what not to bother about. I mean, when you first started to drive a car, it's like, right, okay, I press the clutch, into gear, a little bit of throttle, and a bit of look in the mirror, and you're doing all this carry on. And then one day, it just happens on its own. And it's, wow, it's a different thing altogether. Well, you've got a driving instructor there. Some of these kids, I look at them and I say, they've got these coaches, and all they're doing is barging them with this information, and it must constantly feel like we felt when it was this now, that now.
Yeah. What do I do now? What do I do now? What do I do now?
Yeah. And they're constantly under pressure rather than allowing them to grow even just a little bit with that new bit of information. Because when you become aware of something, the first thing you do is go a wee bit slower because you're focused on that thing. Yeah?
Yeah. Then, you're taking one step back to make you two steps forward.
Yes, absolutely. And you don't see it very often. The psychology of it, as you just said, is way beyond what people seem to think it is. You don't teach two kids the same way because they don't need the same things. I don't know what. I'm trying to think of some examples, but they don't. One kid's full of confidence. One kid learns very, very quickly. The other one, you've got to tell him 10 times. But when it goes into that kid, it stays there. The naturally gifted kids that I've worked with, sometimes being naturally gifted is not always the best thing because you miss out.
Yeah, they're the harder ones to work with quite often.
Well, yeah, but they miss out chunks of information. The kids that are really determined, they have to go through every single point. But when they get...
Andy Prio is a good example of that.
Yeah.
Andy Prio is a good example of a processed guy that was dedicated and professional. And
he was a good...
once he got a guy who sorted out his head, John Pratt, who was his coach. Once so John sorted out the head job, and Andy sorted out the preparation of the kart and the driving the car, I should say, in Spyders. And how formidable were they when that came together?
Absolutely. But he went on to win the World Championship, didn't he? And
3 times.
Yeah.
World Touring Car Champion, yeah. Actually, that takes us nicely. I mean, it's funny. I was scouring around for photos of Renault Spider. So after you were doing the cars, the go-karts, you went back into Renault Spiders. Let's see if we can get a photo, just so for context of anyone who's maybe not of our generation. These things. Yeah, was that where you went straight from karting into that?
The third time or the fourth time, whatever, the last time.
Yeah. Well, yeah. So this is like for me, my starting point was about your second or third time into karting, right?
Yeah.
And so like for me, like so forgive me for I'm thinking, right, so your natural progress from that was like your first time.
Yeah.
But yeah, so that was so it would have been 97 Renault Spider Champion, right?
Yeah, I think that's right. Yeah. I think it was 97.
So did you go straight from because you were doing 100cc? Oh, you did a little bit of Formula A, didn't you, in 96 maybe?
Yes, I think
it's karting.
Yeah. Yeah, but then I think it was during that season that it was actually David Leslie. Do you know David Leslie?
I do know David Leslie, or knew David Leslie. Here's a strange thing, right? And this is how our paths crossed. So my dad had the garage, Norton Carriage Company. Yeah. If you remember Norton Carriage Racing from Vauxhall Junior, and that was in the reason it was called the Norton Carriage Company, Norton Carriage Racing, is because we lived in a place called Hook Norton. My dad's garage, which is just down the road from Clarkson's farm, at Chippy Norton. Yeah. And my dad's garage was in Bloxham, and David moved into Bloxham. And Bloxham was where I went to primary school, right, secondary school, and David moved into the village. So when I was doing Vauxhall Junior in 96, David kind of wandered into the showroom and sat down talking to my dad. And he was quite a big name back then in touring cars. That was when he was a works Honda driver. But yeah, that's kind of how I know David. Didn't know him really well, but knew him well enough.
Well, David's dad was friendly with my mum and dad and had been since Noah. David had come to an event, a karting event, and he said, there's a new series starting up. You need to get your arse back in the car again. This is a waste. And I said, all right, okay, yeah. Thought no more about it. And he was on the phone a couple of times, not hounding me, but you got to get back in. You got to get back in. You could earn a good living at this. And that was how I got back into cars again. But David was a good driver. David with Senna.
And he did what with Senna, sorry?
David Leslie did F3 at the same time as Senna.
Did F3?
Yeah, in F3. And he was very quick. He was long. He was in the group that was at the same place. So David, although everybody knows him as a touring car driver, with a few breaks could have potentially got there, in my opinion.
Yeah, he was a lovely fella.
He was a love, but his old mum, the whole lot, the family were just terrific. They really were nice people. Genuine.
He was quite quiet, David. I mean, he was quite quiet and fairly straight speaking from what I remember. He was fairly straight speaking, but I didn't know what his last time I saw him was actually at Rissington. They were stood next to Little Rissington. We stood next to each other and we were just discussing the race. This would have been about 97-ish. I remember, I'll tell you one bit of advice I remember him giving me. This was at Thruxton, Vauxhall Junior 96, and he kind of wandered, and because his dad had run the Vauxhall Junior. In fact, we bought our transporter from Hayton Coulthard. It was a Hayton Coulthard transporter, and it was an ex David Leslie because it got the Tartan Leslie
Yeah.
racing stripes down the side, and we repainted it white. But remember at Thruxton 96, I was sat in our awning, easy up awning, reading through an Autosport circuit guide, and he came in, took one look at it, he said, "Too late for that, lad." I was so deflated when he said that, and I was like, and he was absolutely on the money. It was way too late to be looking at fucking circuit guides when you're just about to drive around Thruxton.
He was such a nice, but it's such a shame. It really is, but it is what it is.
I think his wife and his kids still live. So Jane, and I don't know the sons, but I think Jane still lives in Bloxham because my dad bumped into her because my dad still lives in the area and bumped into her and had a little chat at wherever it was in town. And then let's have a look at some of these photos. Have a look at this. Let me share that with you again. 2 seconds. Oh my God, I'm pressing the wrong buttons on here. Bear with. There's quite a good one from. It must have been the link from the Renault win that took you to this. So
Yeah,
you did a lot of development work, I'm guessing, in
yeah,
this. Is that right?
yeah. Then I think I would have ended up driving there, but I jumped ship and went to Nissan. When
Right.
Aiello and David Leslie were there.
Okay.
And I was the number 3 driver. I did a lot of test work and development work in that car. In fact, I probably did most of it. But they were the guys that were racing it. There was only 2 cars in the grid.
Yeah. Yeah. And with Nissan, that was in. I remember. Do you know what? I've retold this story, and you may remember this story, right? So I don't have any pictures of the Nissan. You did national saloons, right? Did a couple of races in national saloons.
Yeah, but that was in the Group N car.
Yeah, yeah,
I th- um, yeah, that was in the Group N car. That wasn't in the Touring car.
yeah. No, well, the whole championship was Group N, wasn't it?
Uh, um, I think you're right. There was a yes.
Because Dan Eves won it in the 306.
Sorry.
Dan Eves won it in the 306. I seem to remember.
Yeah, that's right.
So, right, here's what I remember, and I've recalled this story. I learnt from you about flat shifting. So I remember you telling me that you won the race. You absolutely destroyed the field. You're like on pole by like 1.2 seconds or so. I can't remember which race. I think it might have been Thruxton or something. And remember you telling me that one of the rival mechanics in Parc Ferme after, I think it was after the qualifying, you just literally just blitzed everyone. And you came into Parc Ferme. You remember you saying that one of the rival mechanics leaned in through the window and shook the gear stick. And you were like, "What are you doing?" And he said, "That's an auto. That car's an auto." And it's because you'd come past the pits,
But
flat shifted, so literally just little like press on the clutch, but not enough to just enough to slightly disengage it, and the revs going like that, and it was like, "That's an automatic."
no, for me, my head always worked like that. I suppose, always trying to be more efficient, whether it was in a straight or on a corner, whatever. But I was aware that. I mean, now we're talking about before people were doing that. Um,
Yeah,
I was aware that when you press the clutch and lift your foot off the throttle, the momentum, it wasn't that the car slowed down, but the momentum disappeared. And if you just kind of stabbed the clutch a little bit and kept it planted, it was enough to release it and you just smashed it. I mean, the team weren't very happy about it, but we won.
Well, I remember you saying also that, and I use this with kids that I occasionally still coach now in like whatever the Sax Max or Junior Saloon, whatever it is that as long as you're telling the team that you're doing it,
Yes.
then they can go and fix it or just life the component accordingly.
Well, totally, absolutely, 100%. But here's something for that I tell all kids that I coach or have coached, is that after an event, if your mother is not involved in motorsport, and she doesn't have much to say, you can speak to her. If not, your grandmother. It has to be someone that you can talk to that isn't going to throw it back at you at some point in the future. You can't talk to your dad because your dad has an opinion on it. You need someone that you sit and talk to tell them the 100% truth about what just happened, so that you can base your subconscious can look and start building, because it does it without you thinking about it, for the next event. And if you unload the truth, you base it on the truth. And if you don't, and you base the progression on what you've been telling everybody, you start to believe it. And the only time you have a problem then is that it's great because, I should have won that and whatever. Then when you go to sit in the car the next time, suddenly you've put a load of pressure on yourself and it's like, oh shit, I've got to perform now. Do you with me?
I do. Yeah, absolutely. It's kind of like holding a mirror up to yourself, but the action of externalizing the truth,
Yes.
like you say, without it's almost like talking to yourself in the mirror. Well, here's what the truth of the matter was,
Yeah.
because then you can start to accept it and you can start to build on the lessons learned from that, right?
I think a driver, the good drivers are the honesty for yourself has to be immense. Otherwise, you build on lies, and it will come crumbling down. It always will. It always does. It's like you need to unload. You have to. Everybody I've ever worked with progresses from that. They all make a step forward from that. I mean, well, you do get the ones that kid on that they're telling the truth, but they couldn't tell themselves the truth. Never mind somebody else. The picture that they've painted, if you know what I mean. And for me, that's very important. It's one of the first things that I explain to them. It's about the truth. If you've messed up, you didn't deliberately crash into somebody. You didn't deliberately spin. You were trying your hardest, and it happens. We've all done it. You can feel like an idiot, whatever. You don't have to. We've all been there. If you weren't trying, that would be a bigger problem. You've got to try. You've got to work on the edge. We've got to develop the edge, where the edge is, move on. But the only way we can do that is with honesty. And then when you get kids, especially, telling the truth, you need to make it easy for them to tell the truth. But once they tell the truth, the speed that they progress is much faster. Honestly.
Well, that's what I like. Back to Max Verstappen. That's what I like about Max. He's not afraid of just saying exactly what he thinks.
Yeah.
And it's not often. It's not what everyone wants to hear.
Well,
what he thinks.
It's classed as saying what you think, right? Which means generally it means something negative. Or he says what he thinks, so you've got to watch what you're saying. Basically, what the lad is doing is telling the truth. He sees it. He's telling the truth. And that's not negative. But saying it as it is sounds like a negative way of putting it. I don't know if you know what I mean. Am I blethering shit?
I know exactly what you mean. I know exactly what you mean. Well, it's funny. I mean, the journey that I've been on in the last like 5 years, when you go through a separation, it's basically the equivalent of having a massive shunt in your personal life, and
Yeah.
that's the way I view it. And that's, it's funny, Bryce. The reason I call this "Don't Lift Off" is because it's kind of an analogy for life, and I'm hoping at some point to speak to. I want to speak to interesting people, and of course, I want to speak to mainly motor racing people. I also want to speak to people who are just a little bit out there, like perhaps Neil, or just someone that we've got a thread of motor racing, but there's a common thing of people like Michael Verges, for example. I absolutely love Verge because he's just, whatever he does, he's straight to the point, very truthful, and there's.
I like Verge. I think he's a good guy. It's funny how when you get old and you stop racing, and you don't have to go out and beat somebody, you can talk to them differently than the persona that you put on when you're racing against them.
Yeah.
You can't have flaws when you've got to go out and beat somebody. I'm
Yeah.
looking at you. I've got to beat you now, and I'm looking for the weaknesses.
Yeah, absolutely. In the conversation.
Yeah, absolutely.
In a conversation, aren't you?
And I can tell from the conversation that you're quietly confident today. I need to stop that. Or in the conversation, I know I've got the feel that you're on your back foot today. I can leave you alone, not spend any more time with you, and go and find a guy that is confident. You with me?
Yeah, totally. Yeah, totally. Well, it's interesting that kids I've worked with at Silverstone. I didn't work for the Silver, didn't work on the Silverstone race intensive course that much, but occasionally, the odd occasion when I did get invited along, um, I, there were some kids, one particular kid. Actually, I won't mention his name to be fair, but he was naturally talented, like super quick. But after each test session, he'd go and dick around with his mates, and he never won the championship. He never, and I always felt, and I'd had a discussion with him afterwards. I said, when you finish doing a test session, just keep yourself to yourself for now. And maybe that wasn't the right piece of advice. Maybe it should have been a questioning thing, really, as like, well, what are you doing? Try getting him to reach the conclusion on his own accord, if that makes sense. But he would go around and he would just be dicking around with his other mates, and then when you get on track, he would just be dicking around, and it was just losing focus off track, and that was then having a spillover to on track, if that
Yeah.
makes sense.
No. It will have a spillover, but at the end of the day, they're kids, and to stop them dicking around, it can't be too serious. But you need to keep their interest in another way.
Yeah.
And there are no two kids the same. Some kids, they just desperately want to ask more questions all the time.
Yeah.
And other kids, you've almost got to lead them into a question. And if you don't, they very quickly wander off. I'm not running out suck eggs here. I've studied myself, and because of that, I've studied other people. And as much as I like to teach people, coach people how to drive, I truly believe that you have to understand what makes a person work before you start to teach them how to coordinate a steering wheel with a set of pedals.
Well, 100%, because then you can draw on those things. It's like if you have a pilot, for instance, like for just kind of basic, not talking like professional drivers, but if you're trying to take someone from being a rank novice to a competent driver, okay, well, what's the transfer that they're going to understand from their life and their life experiences that you can use across to changing the discipline? So it could be a horse rider, it could be a tractor driver, it could be, it's like, what can we use? Again, you're back to the same, back to talking about tools, aren't you?
Tools in the box. At the end of the day, I think that whether it be driving a car riding a bike, horse riding, whatever it is, when you get to that part that is the edge is all about your body feeling things and your head is assessing what it feels. That's what the edge is. And then it comes out of you, and experience allows you to do the right things with it, or whatever you're going to do with it. But the edge is whatever you're doing. I think the amount of work that I've done with, especially kids, the variance in the kids is huge. Grown-ups tend to be either complete nutters or very calm and difficult to get going. Kids, it is huge, and to coach a kid without assessing them properly first, I think it's just madness. It's not fair on the kids for a start off. You're trying to put information into a kid that it's not going to go in. You're going to get frustrated. He's not going to like you because you're doing it the wrong way, and it's not the kid's fault. It's you, the coach, you're being paid to do. And that's what I mean by to get these kids along, young men along that are coaches, but they're really just track specialists. They're not in their heads. I don't know if you know what I mean.
Yeah. Well, I totally know what you mean. Well, it's the same difference between discipline between instructor and coach.
Yeah.
Instructor tells someone what they're going to do at any given moment. Okay, and they're just helping them on. But the driver relies on the instructor to tell them what to do. A coach is more asking questions so that person, whoever's driving or whatever, gets to that conclusion on their own time, on their own.
You also build a confidence that then makes the kids want to ask more questions, because a lot of the kids that I've worked with are actually scared to ask questions in case they seem stupid. And if
I start.
Did you know it's you? You've got to make them believe in you first. Once they believe in you, then their confidence builds in you, and all these things happen. Then the information starts to go back the other way.
Yeah, it gets them. It's changing the mindset very slightly, isn't it? I started to learn this from Paul Carr actually, because I was like, it was a test session. I think it was Shennington, and I went to go out, and I was like, what tire pressures do you think? Don't know. I don't know, 20, 24, 26. And it was like, what do you think? I was like, yeah, that's probably about right, actually. Yeah, probably. Do you see what I mean? He just immediately flipped it onto me. He's like, what do you think? You should be the one that's fucking thinking about this.
Yeah.
You should be, and then that gets the pupil thinking about that, and then the pupil can eventually turn into the coach themselves if they're starting to think in that way.
Well, you're going back to a period when people didn't really have coaches. Not really. When there wasn't such a thing as a coach. You went away and you sorted it out yourself, and that was it. But for me, there should have been a discussion about the pressures, about the pressures when the cart came in. Already, but Paul Carr wasn't really your coach, was he? Or was he?
Well, he was an ex-school teacher.
Yeah, but he wasn't.
He was an ex-school teacher.
He wasn't there.
Mathematics teacher, I think.
He was there to prep all the gear and make sure it was right. Or am I?
Yeah.
I don't know.
Well, no. Well, he'd got a racing background, and by the way, just as a side, I'd absolutely love to get PC on here. He would be brilliant. He would be brilliant. Number of stories and background he's got. So, yeah. If anyone is watching this that knows PC and has my number, please send him a text message and get him to get in touch, or please give me his number and I will give him a shout and get him on here.
Last year at
You spoke to him last year?
Yeah, I spoke to. He was at the. Remember, I said to you, I went to the World Kart Championship at PF.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, he was. He was there, and he said that he was.
Was he still involved then? What was he doing?
He's been in America. He's running stuff in.
Oh, really?
So that's.
I see.
I haven't heard anything of him. I don't know if he's back now or whatever, but he came back for the World Championship, but he was going back out again.
I'm going to chase him down. I'm going to hunt him down. I'm going to get the hunt for PC.
Yeah, I like.
I last spoke to him he was great. I last spoke to him at Buckmore Park, and he was right in the middle of doing some kind of engines or something. And I was coaching with a lad, and anyway, I won't go. That's another story that I won't go into exactly what happened that weekend. But I remember just talking to him, and that was the last time I spoke to him. That must have been 10, 15, at least 10 years ago.
Yeah. Well, I'm just lucky that last year was. It was quite strange when I went to the event at PF last year. The amount of people that were there from my era, and everybody knew me. In fact, McNish was there, Alan,
No way.
and we had a good natter about. He raced his first senior British Championships was at Wanwell, and I raced at that event, and he reckoned that I'd stuffed him. I don't.
And he's held a grudge ever since. Never mind about winning Le Mans like 7 times or whatever, how many times he won Le Mans. He's still
Yeah.
still holding that grudge against you for taking him off at Wanwell.
Uh,
I like that. That's
but
grown
he
a
ended,
higher level of respect for him straight away.
I know he ended up winning it. Oh, I take my hat off to him. He did. He drove well. He was just a kid at that time. I was an old man. Now I have to say that well, we're on the coaching thing. Did you race against Peter Dumbrick in Vauxhall?
No, I know Pete. I worked with him a little bit at Silverstone. He now, he lives in Shannington Village.
No, I didn't know.
Yeah, he lives in Shannington. Here's a random thing he told me. So I was talking with, I had Chris Hodgetts on the other day,
Yeah.
and we were talking about Sunrise Hill, which is the road from like Stratford into Banbury, which used to be the main road to Silverstone. And I remember Pete telling me he's the like maximum speed record holder down Sunrise Hill on a cycle. He does cycling. Remember, this is like the Strava record holder down there.
Well,
Still competitive, even though I don't think he's competing, but he is on Strava.
well, let me tell you this about Peter Dumbrick. As you know, I've worked with a lot of the good young kids that were successful. Some weren't successful, but I did Coulthard, Franchitti, Peter Dumbrick. I did other kids who were really good as well. But of those three that you'll know the names, Peter Dumbrick, of them all, should have been in F1. He was one of the kids where you told him something once and it happened. And what's wrong for him, I don't know. Because I definitely had him earmarked to be F1 world champion. Honestly, he was that good.
He was very good in Formula Vauxhall, wasn't he? I mean, when he raced with Paul Stewart Racing and he just blitzed the championship. He won like 11 out of 13 races or something.
He was special. I mean, as a nipper, and I don't mean that Franchitti and Coulthard weren't good. They were. You could see that there was something special about them, but Peter stood out. Honestly, I don't know where it went wrong. Don't know why it didn't.
We got to DTM and then it
Yeah.
kind of stalled.
Yeah.
A little bit after that. I don't know. I'd like to have him on here. Actually, it'd be good to have a chat with him. But last time I spoke to him, actually, I was out for a bike ride, and I decided to have a ride all around sort of Stratford and Warwick and Burton Dasset Hills and stuff. And I called him. I said, "Are you free? Do you fancy going out for a ride?" And then by the time he sent yes, I was halfway on the ride. It was all a bit too late. But
Yeah.
yeah, it'd be good to catch up with him. A lot of these drivers ended up moving into the sort of Bloxham area, because where I grew up. So like Kelvin Burt moved in there, Darren Turner moved in there, Pete Dunbreck, obviously Dave Leslie, because obviously Banbury, it's like the hub of motorsport.
The thing, I came back to Scotland to live. I always said I would go home. Well, I wasn't well. I was ill. That was
Say about that, because that was the last time I saw you. You'd had your operation. Is that what you're talking about?
yeah. And then I was fine again afterwards. And the problem was I didn't know what was wrong with me. And then,
But you sensed, even though the doctors had given you the all clear, you were like, no, there's something not right. Would you mind? Do you mind talking about that?
no, not at all, not a problem. I had the race team, as you know, and we knew something wasn't right. And they're saying, yeah, I'm suffering from. It started off by telling me I was suffering from stress, and you've got one of these lives that they asked me about my life, and it's a stressful life and whatever. I thought that stress was when something new came along and sparked something off. And the doctor said, well, yeah. I said, well, the life that I have is the life I've had since I was a young boy. Nothing new. So I'm not suffering from stress. I don't believe I am. But they wanted to treat me for stress. And then they fell out with me because I wouldn't take the stress tablets. I didn't agree. And basically, I fell out with the doctors, didn't go back, but the deterioration was getting worse and worse.
What were you sensing? When you say deterioration, what do you mean?
I couldn't sleep. It got to the point where I was almost having no sleep. And I can tell you, I've had pain in my life, like super physical pain. See, sleep deprivation, when you just want to go to sleep. It's awful. It's just awful, honestly. And then out of the blue, we got rid of everything by this time because I couldn't function. And we got rid of everything. And one day I was in the house and suddenly everything started to smell like the worst smell you'd ever smelt in your life. I mean, I was boking and I'm saying, what on earth's going on? Something's stinking. No, there's nothing smelling. So she made me go back to the doctor. Went to the doctor. They said, right, okay, we're going to send you for an MRI scan. And I sarcastically said, yeah, how long is this going to take? Another 6 months? Because every test I got was like 6 months, 3 months or whatever. And they said, no, we're going to send you now. And I suddenly thought, oh, this sounds a bit serious. So I went and had the scan. And I was a bit fly with the guy that did the scan, as any motor racing guy would do. He would, I says, and how long does it take to get the results from these? He says, I wouldn't worry about it. He says, if you don't hear from the doctor in the next 10 days or so, give him a phone and he'll give you the results. And I thought, nothing wrong. So when I got home, the wife said to me, the doctor's been on the phone, you have to go up to the hospital. I says, I've just been. Oh, right, okay. Right. And then she come back in the room, she said, 10 minutes later, and she said, the doctor was on the phone 2 minutes before you came in the door. You better phone the doctor. So I phoned the doctor and they said, pack a case, you're going in. And I had an operation that night.
Did you? And so what was it?
I had a growth inside up here. Can you see? It was in here.
Yeah.
I didn't know that was what it was. As far as I was concerned, I had a growth in my brain. And I was like, really, they sat me down and they started to explain to me what they were going to do. And I'd seen a program on the TV about grinders on heads and you're not allowed to be asleep, you have to be awake. And I said, I don't want to know, just do it. and it was nothing like that at all. Basically, they were able to go in. They cut me up here, just inside at my gum.
Yeah, I remember you telling me this.
Yeah, they lifted up my face. I mean, I used to be a really good looking guy. uh, uh,
And now you're better.
well, I was asleep. I don't know. I don't know what really happened, but they took it. They took it away, whatever it was.
But they peeled up pretty much
Yeah.
your whole front end.
That's
Fucking hell, man.
how they did it. They told me they did it that way, and I can assure you, I can never have cosmetic surgery because the pain in my face, it was incredible. And these people that have all these jobs in their face where they pull things back, oh no, that's not fun. Oh, it was awful.
Yeah.
For months it was sore. It was strange. It was numb. Everything was numb. But it was, you know, you could touch it and you couldn't feel it, but it was painful. Anyway, the strangest thing about it was when I got out of hospital, home, I was drugged up. But as soon as we stopped taking the drugs, I knew, like, straight away, I'm fixed. I fell asleep, and it was the most wonderful feeling. Honestly, it was just I can't explain it. To have wanted so long and not being able to get one. Well, I was getting sleep, but I'd be sitting here and I'd fall asleep. As soon as I went to bed, I couldn't sleep.
Yeah.
Me why that was, that where it was when I laid down, it got so big that when I laid down, it caused pressure on the part of your brain that allows you to sleep, and it was waking me up. And
Right.
the smell thing was your smell seemingly works in gears. It goes, that gear is Castrol R30, and it sends a signal to your brain to say, it's bring up the file for Castrol R30, then it tells me it's Castrol R30. And because of this problem, it wasn't going into gear. So I was smelling every smell I'd smelt in the world. So
right.
I only come to the conclusion that I've smelt some dose of shite.
Scrambling your senses.
Absolutely.
You know.
But from then on,
You know.
it was clear. And I mean, now I'm spot on, and it's yeah, everything's good. The only thing is I miss motorsport now, but to go back into it and start up a team and invest, and I don't want to do that. But I miss being involved.
No. But you've got a skill that you've developed over years, and I'd say that probably the biggest skill is the head job as you once said to me. You know, when I remember you, I can't remember which driver it was you were working with, and you said it's like this kid's got all the skill in the world. What he needs is the work on the head, and it's the psychological element, right? I tell you what, I want to do. I want to go through quite quickly because I want to talk to you a little bit about politics. And I know this is not really what I've done before on Don't Lift, but I want to talk to you about that because it's something that it's the main thing that we've interacted on Facebook from time to time, and it's at that point anyone who's actually watching this is interested in motorsport can go and oh, you've gone upside down now for some reason. Right, I want to run through something. I want to try and do this quick, but there's some really cool stuff that you sent through. I'm absolutely loving this. What is this about?
Yeah.
Can I see it?
Yeah. Lawrence Jacobson had a motorbike shop when I was young, and I was always fairly handy on a motorbike. And when we were doing the V2V, we used to hire Albacete circuit on. I didn't mean for that one to be in there actually. However,
No, I'm loving it. It's mate. This is what is. There's some other nice little Easter eggs I've got in a second, but go on.
well, we used to hire Albacete for 4 or 5 days, and we had four 4 cars, 4 Lieges, and we would take them out there, and all the new drivers could test and things, and I would all the ideas and things that we'd made for the cars, and changes that we'd made, I would test for the 3-4 days, whatever it was, and the drivers would learn the cars and things before the first. Normally end of February, and the first race was normally the beginning of March. So we would stay over there in Spain at Albacete and go to whatever circuit it was. It was normally in Spain. So that was fine. But what happened one day was there was a Scottish motorbike team came. And they went to the circuit office and said that they were going to an event at Barcelona and they wanted to do some testing before they got there. And the guy came and saw me, and he was from Perth, and he was a good rider. I'd never heard of him before, but he was good. And he said, they sent us to you because you've hired the circuit, so it's up to you whether we can get on or not. I said, well, we're not allowed to put bikes out with cars and so on and so forth. I said, so what we'll do, he only wanted it for half a day to do some work. I says, well, what we'll do is when we've got a car out, you need to come in, and vice versa. We'll do that for the half day. Great. What do I owe you? I says, a shot on the bike. And he said, nah, can't give you a shot on the bike. He says, but I've got my test bike here. He says, you can have a shot on that. I says, that'll do me. And I have to say, oh man, this thing was unbelievable. Honestly, they say that bikes aren't very quick through corners, and I wasn't giving it the big guiton, but that thing was on rails. The grip for a motorbike, it was just unbelievable, absolutely unbelievable. And that was just one of the guys took a picture from the pit wall.
Yeah. That's fucking mega. So it's funny because when Lewis Hamilton, did you ever see when Lewis Hamilton tested Valentino Rossi's bike and he went and tested the Mercedes?
No, I didn't.
And I think he's quite a competent rider. I mean, most racers tend to be like that. He wasn't giving it the big one down the straight like this, Bryce. That's fair play. That's reasonably big legs there. Fair play, man.
I knew it was
rock and roll.
I knew it was coming. The picture. That was why it. But in all fairness, it wasn't like trying to wheelie a road bike. I mean, you just gave this thing a bit too much gutty, and it was lifting the wheel of its own accord. It was quite an awesome piece of kit. It really was, honestly. It wasn't like you could imagine a race bike. It was the grip level, the power. It was awesome. It was disappointing to go get back in the car.
I just want to stick with 2 wheels. You know,
adrenaline was brown.
Sorry, go on, say that again. Adrenaline was brown. Brilliant.
It was brown.
Right, so here's a good one for you. So in 2007, I was racing the SR3. So we were racing the SR3s. There was SR8s, but there wasn't that many people in it. But SR3s, I was teammates with Brad Ellis, and we were leading the championship. We won the championship in the end. But halfway through, I'd asked my wife to get me for a birthday present a track day in an R6 around Silverstone, and it was Fast Vale, Fast Abbey into Bridge. So it was like fast. It's quite a lot of the original corners, although Fast Vale wasn't. But it was fast. And I remember literally, it got a brand new back tire on this R6, and they'd got tire heaters on it, and I went out, and the guy said, just be a bit careful with the throttle because it might high side you if you gas it up a bit too much. So I was being like super gentle on the throttle pickup, the first couple of laps, super gentle on the throttle pickup. But because I knew, and I mean, I'd worked at Silverstone, I'd done hundreds, probably thousands of laps around there. And I was racing a prototype at the time, which had got big fat tires and aero, and And I remember, like, I put myself in the intermediate group. I thought, well, I should be all right in the intermediate group. And I remember following this lad round, and I was like, yeah, I seem to be following him. I think I'm catching him. Yeah, I'm catching him. I'm catching him. So then I'm starting to get my head down. This is like 4 laps into it. So, like, on the 6th lap, I arrived down at Stowe Corner. Hence the reason why. Remember Charlie Hollings?
Yes.
Charlie Hollings called me Stowe Corner for the next like 6 months. And I'll tell you the reason why is because I arrived down there, basically outbrake myself completely. I braked where I would be in a radical, and because the contact patch on a track day, on a bike is like that big, got on the brakes, realised I was braking like way too late. So then I'm like a dog at the vets. I'm like fully on the back brake as well. So I'm then fully locked up like Valentino Rossi, like a full on drift, but without any degree of talent or know-how what's going on. And then slammed myself straight down onto the deck and I cracked my collarbone.
Yeah.
Picked the bike up, rode back to the pits, but ended up in the med centre and then at
Yeah.
Northampton General.
The good wasn't the old circuit, because Stowe was one of these. Stowe was a corner that sorted the men out from the boys. You had to be flat or you weren't quick. And you had
Oh, really?
10, 15 feet till the Armco barrier. It was something else. It was a proper mummy daddy job, honestly.
Yeah.
There was a few corners like that. I mean, it's so safe now. It's easy to find out if a corner's flat. In fact, sometimes it's quicker to be flat and go off and come back on again. Not that I think it should be unsafe. That's not what I mean. But it's one of the differences then till now. But when you go back a generation before me, it was trees that marked out the circuits. What chances did these guys have at all?
Yeah.
And they were still doing 150 mile an hour.
Yeah.
Anyway, I'm blithering now. Go on.
You hit a tree 150 miles an hour, you know about it.
Yeah.
Right, let's go through some of these other cuts. So don't need to know the full story behind it, but I wanted to showcase some of the stuff that you've driven and developed, and there's some pretty cool bits of kit in here. What the hell is this?
That's a Can-Am car. That's a Formula 3000 with an American body on it, basically. It's just lots of bodywork on a Formula 3000. Reynard, I think it was.
Proper. I remember you going out to the States. For some reason in my mind, maybe it's because I saw the red car in with the Shell logo on it. I thought that was a Ferrari, but obviously not. This must have been the picture I saw in Autosport.
No, that's not. See the one that you showed up before that? I think it was the other one.
This one or this one?
No, the one before that then. Try that one before it. That one. That was an American.
Yeah.
That was the Matrix. And I did quite a lot of work out there in the car. The Matrix was actually, can you remember the Nissan GTP cars?
Yeah, roughly, yeah.
Yeah, it's super, downforce was incredible. It was a 1,000 brake horsepower job. It was just silly. And Nissan pulled out of the GTP and sold the cars off. But the cars had roofs on them. And basically that is one of the Nissan GTP cars, but they chopped off the roof and called it a Matrix.
Yeah.
It was incredible. I mean, the grip level on it was just silly. I can remember once coming in and saying to them, there was a series of long, fast corners, which shouldn't have been flat, but they were flat. And I mean, that thing was seriously quick in a straight line, and probably the quickest thing I ever drove in a straight line. And I came in and I says, you can feel your insides moving around. There was that much G-force. That's what it felt like. I'm not saying they were moving around, but it felt like you could feel your insides moving around. There was so much.
Just loads of aero.
Not that one, the one before it, the red one.
Really? Oh, hang on.
That one. it was that was they changed the bodywork on it, obviously, but they chopped the roof off, changed the body, but it was pretty much just a Nissan GTP car. It was awesome. Who was my teammate? Was Ben Collins. We did the European stuff in it.
Ben Collins?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. AKA the Stig.
Yes. But the car was something else. I went out to America to do a lot of work with it, with the guy that owned it. He'd sold his company off. He had a clothes company, massive clothes company, and he just had a lot of money and he loved motorsport, but he couldn't drive. So they were based in Los Angeles. So I spent a wee bit of time there. That was good. I enjoyed that. That was very
nice. I remember you going stateside. I remember that was yeah, I remember reading about that. And this was most recently. Is this V? Yeah, it's V2V again, isn't it?
That was the last. We actually, that was after I'd been ill. When I was getting back together again, the guy actually, when I look at it, this here RSE is the guy that owned that car. He wanted me to run the car for him, and I said, I'll run it, but I don't have any kit. He says, well, look, I'll get all the kit. You just be in charge of it. So that's basically what. And we had a great season, absolutely great season. I mean, we didn't win the championship or anything like that, but we had such a good time. It was a fantastic car, just fantastic, so easy to drive.
And it all went carbon tubs and MP3 and stuff. Not long after that, didn't it?
That's right. Well, there was the LMP3 was out at the same time as that, and there wasn't a lot of difference in the cars, other than that had a lot more grip than the LMP3, but the LMP3 had a lot more grunt. But it was about the same. But it was
nice bits of kit. And then kind of just from a business and racing point of view, before we talk about other stuff. So tell us what you're doing now then. So that looks like a TK. Is that TKM?
Oh, it's a PCR.
Right.
Myself and my brother, the guy that was in that photograph, the one that I said had won 7 on the Dunt, we basically, we've got a company, it's called Restore and Coat, where we restore things and we coat things. And a bit like Vergers, we do some vapor blasting, but we do ceramic coating, we do powder coating, but all small stuff, all one-offs, not a line. We've said that we're old, and if we stop enjoying it, we don't want to do it anymore. We're enjoying it. It's nice when you take something that's shit and knackered and make it beautiful again. I mean, even Fullerton came on when he saw that and went, "Oh, that's the bollocks," with an English.
Nice.
But it's we've done some pretty nice stuff, actually. Stuff that we stand back and go, "Yeah, I like that. That's good. Like that."
Nice.
Important to us. I mean, we need to be paid for doing the job as well, obviously. But there's a pleasure. It's as close as we can get to, for me, coaching some young lad that thought he had no chance and suddenly arrived. The feeling that you get off them is, nah, that's better. I prefer coaching people. But this is nice. This is good. I can look at it and go, yeah, we made a good job of that.
Yeah, you got to find anything that you do in life. You've got to enjoy doing it. You've got to enjoy doing it. So what's going down? Tell us about what's going down in Scotland. So you and I share quite fairly forthright on our views about politics. What's going down? Whereabouts do you live? Whereabouts are you originally from? Where do you live now? We'll send Keir Starmer's boys round there.
I'm from a place called, and I'm going to teach you how to say it now. You said that you worked for Andrew Kirkcaldy. You said Kirkcaldy.
Thank you. I did, yeah, Kirkcaldy.
Everybody says Kirkcaldy because that's how it's spelled, but it's a silent L. It's Kirkcaldy.
Yeah.
Originally from Kirkcaldy.
Yeah.
And I live in a wee village now called Burnt Island, which is about 6 or 7 miles away from Kirkcaldy. And I look out over the Forth, and on my right-hand side, I can see the Forth Bridge, the railway bridge, and over the water, I can see Edinburgh. So,
I didn't know you. I didn't know you lived there. Next time, last year, I ran across the. I run every day, right?
yeah.
And I ran across the Forth Row Bridge. And if I'd have known you were that neck of the woods, I'd have knocked on your door. I've run along the bay, along Kirkcaldy, a few times as well.
I've been in trouble on that bay a few times. Yeah, brings back memories. Well, when I lived down the country, I always said when I get too old, I'm going to go back to Scotland to live. And it's the worst thing I ever did. I was back, I bought a house, I was back 6 months, and it was like, what have I done? It's cold, it's dreich, it's just, it's just the wrong place.
Keeps you tough though, man.
It's tough, yeah. I could do with not being tough anymore.
You love it, mate. You love it. So what's happening? What's going on in that neck of the woods? Where's the government up to? I was speaking to Sasha about this because they keep getting rid of idiots and other idiots come back to replace them. Am I right, or am I speaking out of turn there?
Well, I think you're very right, but I think it's politics over the back, isn't it? We all have different views on politics, and I think your views are determined by how much time you spend on investigating. I think I've probably got over to you that I analyse the arse out of things, whether it's a driver, a cart, an engine. I can't help it. I have to get to the bottom of things because that's how I fix things. Although I can't.
Okay, well, I'll give you a quote of what you once said to me. I'm one of those fuckers that has to know why.
Yeah,
I have to know why.
I haven't changed, and when I get a hold of something, if I see something on the internet, even on social media, if it's interesting to me, I don't believe it and I don't disbelieve it. I'll go away and investigate it. And I've got a bit of a ritual where once you go in and start looking for things, you look for things to support it and you look for things to make it untrue. Yeah? If you're going to analyse it properly, you have to do that. And to a point where it meets, it always does. And if you're starting with a line at the top where this is false and this is true to whatever the item is, it goes in a direction. It will come this way or it will come this way, and it tells you that it's right. And then you can find something to support it. Something to support it, not somebody in the pub or whatever. And I have an open mind, and I think that comes from the motorsport. You have to have an open mind. That's quicker, that's slower. How many times did you go out and you wanted that to be quicker and it wasn't? And how disappointed were you? And other times you got a shock, like, how can it be quicker? So it kind of makes you into the kind of person that has an open mind where you're prepared to accept whatever is going to be there. And it's a bit like that for me with politics as well. I don't want to be a politician or anything like that. But in recent years, because there's so much shit going down, I need to know the truth. I need to know, you maybe can't get the truth, but you can get as close to it as...
Close as you can to it.
Yeah. Enough to make a decision as to that's correct, that's not correct.
100%.
I think I know that you are into what's happening in America just now. Yeah, and I am too. I hope that we don't get let down, but everything that I've studied says that we're not going to be let down. Not in the way, in a devious way. If we're let down, it's something's gone wrong. But I think that over here, we're governed by Westminster. We've got some guys in Edinburgh that think they're something, but they're not. They're not allowed to do anything. They can order 2 extra pints of milk or whatever to be delivered on a Monday morning, but that's about the size of it, really. That's a slight exaggeration, but not much. If Westminster say this is happening, then it's happening. If they say it's not happening, it's not happening. And I wish that wasn't the case just now. And in the past, I always did, because what's going on with our Prime Minister is unacceptable. I don't know how to say it. I could be aggressive about it, but the bottom line is it's unacceptable. I believe he's been controlled. I don't think that's his doing, because he can't be as stupid as the decision that he's making. He can't. It's not possible. I don't know. Do you agree with anything I'm saying, or do you think I'm completely?
Yeah, I agree with it. I agree with it totally. I don't know too much about WEF, and I kind of, I just don't know enough about it. But I do know one thing is that I'd trust someone who has run a business before and knows how to build things. I mean, I know Trump is a divisive person,
Yeah,
but he's built things. He might not have built them in the right way or gone about a lot of things in the right way, but he has built things. And if you know how to run a company and you know how to employ people and you know how to build things, well, you've then got a tendency to build things, not to break things down. If you don't know those, then you tend to break things down.
yes. I mean, I truly believe that just because you don't like somebody's personality, it doesn't mean they're wrong. Or if you like somebody's personality, it doesn't mean they're right. What it means is, if you like somebody, you tend to look for the positive in what they're doing. And if you don't like somebody, you tend to look more for the negatives. It's called human nature. But when it comes to politics or something that's going to affect your life, you can't allow personality to come into it. And they're criticising him because, there's something in it for him, there's this in it for him, there's that in it for him. But the only reason you know that there's something in it for him is because he's been honest and telling you. But the thing about it is when if he's creating something that means that if he does earn money out of it, but that's debatable, he's allowing everybody else to earn money as well. He's creating a situation where everybody can go and earn. I think that that's the case. Whereas,
well, wouldn't you rather trust someone who's got money in the first place than someone who's doing the job and becomes wealthy after doing that job that's a public servant job? It's like, the likes of Nancy Pelosi, for instance, who gets extremely wealthy and she's a public servant. It's like, hang on a second, get extremely wealthy for running a business and doing something. How do you get extremely wealthy by being a public servant? Hang on a second.
Well,
what the hell?
makes it obvious that she's a devious person. She's devious. She's cleverly devious. She's made a lot of money out of it. But I think that branch of politics, that period of politics, I think there was a lot of people making a lot of money. And they were lying about it, and they didn't care that the money they were making was depriving somebody else of something, and you didn't get to know about it. And this is only things I've found out. I'm not making a statement here that this is how it is. We're just
Yeah, yeah.
discussion.
Yeah, is it? Well, that's the point, though, isn't it, Bryce? Is we're having a discussion about it. I mean, it's like there was a. Thankfully, I think we've moved past that point that of not being allowed to have a discussion. But it's like that's one of the reasons why I post shit that I do is that because it's just like, why aren't we allowed to discuss this? It's like I'm not Nazi. I'm pretty much middle of the road in terms of this is the weird thing that I find myself in is that. So I've voted Lib Dem at, when I just finished sixth form. I've always tried to be kind of middle of the road, and yet now I find myself at the point of like being looked upon as being right wing. It's like how the fuck have I got to that point? I don't know. I've certainly tried and look for the truth, but how have I? It's like
Well, I think
how has that happened?
right wing now is the old, not left wing, but way back, almost. If you think about it, Labour and Conservative, when you go back 25 years, 30 years, there wasn't that much between them. The left was a bit more left and the right was just a bit more. But whatever, it wasn't that much different. And I think what's actually happened is that the right have moved slightly more to the right, just slightly. But the left has gone so far left. It's
Gone fucking lunatic.
yeah, and I
You
think
can't tell the difference between a boy and a girl.
well, this is what disappoints me is not the people who think they're girls that are actually boys. It's the people that support them. And yeah, go on. You've got a right to say that, and making them believe it. That they're the ones that are the problem. The people who actually think they are a girl, they need some help. They're confused.
Yeah.
And by one group of people pandering to you makes you want to be with those people because it makes you feel better instead of reality.
Yeah.
Uh,
Yeah.
I feel sorry for them in a lot of ways. They are confused, but they're not getting the proper help. They're getting people say, well, you could be a cat if you want, or whatever.
So let's call him a cat and let's perpetuate that, shall we?
Yeah.
It's like
It's mad. How it came around, I don't know. It kind of came from nowhere. I certainly didn't see it.
I don't think it did. I think it gradually crept up upon us, and it's exactly what happened. So this is where the likes of Jordan Peterson have called it out. Is like, okay, this happened in the Soviet Union, and it's essentially it's like that you have to believe in the lie, and the lie is, I mean, one of the most fundamental things it can be is that if you insist on that boy being called a girl when that person is very clearly a boy, and all of you have to go along with this, otherwise, otherwise it's hate speech and we bang you up, we lock you up. You're in a real problem with society when that happens, because it's like, well, but that's not true. So, and this is exactly what happened this is what Peterson explained to happen in the Soviet Union, is that they ended up, family members were encouraged to um to grass up other family members who, because they're all told to be communist, and one mustn't have another possession, mustn't have one extra horse than the other person, or one extra plow or anything like that. You must all have the same. Well, if one person is better at making a plow, or one person is like looks after their horses better and happens to obtain two horses through better breeding or better looking after them or better production of the plow or whatever it is, then the person who's jealous is saying, well, they're going against the state, and that the whole family gets encouraged to do that. And it's like, No, we don't want to go there. We really don't want to go there.
Go there. I mean, you have to have an open mind. You have to. We're not all the same. We are all different, but fundamentally, biologically, men are the same and women are the same. Women are the same,
Yeah.
and men are the same as men.
Yeah.
They're not the same. They're very different.
No, there's crossover. There's crossover in the way that you get masculine men and you get feminine.
Yeah.
Sorry, you get feminine men and masculine
Yeah.
women.
Yeah.
And there's crossover, and there's some birds that would be able to beat me up, for instance.
Yeah.
Wouldn't be too difficult.
There's nothing wrong with that. There's nothing wrong with. There's nothing wrong with. I think there's nothing wrong with a man wanting to be a woman, or a woman wanting to be a man. That's entirely up to them. But make you believe that they actually are.
Yeah, and insist on it, or else.
That's where it becomes a little bit kind of, wait a minute, this is mad.
This is crazy.
Politicians get involved and start doing. We had that with our minister, head of state. What's her name? One of the cranky.
Sturgeon.
Sturgeon.
One of the crankies. Yeah. Jimmy Cranky.
Jimmy Cranky.
Herself.
She passed a law that about this, and there was a chap got put in prison for rape, and he identified as a woman, and he got put in prison, and he raped a load of women, and it was like, how stupid! How stupid! You would have, at that point, they would have said, "Well, wait a minute, this is just wrong." However, it carries on today, but they've stopped it in America.
They have, and I think it's all going to unfold in this country as well. And I called that what was going to happen. I'm not trying to I am actually trying to big myself up. That's not being truthful. I was, but I saw that like 3 years ago, and I can see what's going to happen over here as well. I mean, the Prime Minister that's going to go wrong. That's going to go wrong. You can see it in terms of what's growing. Certainly in England, anyway.
It's almost like it really is nuts. I mean, it's like he's totally lost the plot. But he can't have totally lost the plot. But it looks like he has. What he's doing. I mean, he still wants to send troops to Russia. Yeah. Last thing I seen, and I thought somebody needs to inform him that this thing's going to stop shortly.
Well, actually, I mean, the only thing I'd say about that, because I made a comment about that, and actually, I'm not sure whether he meant that as a peacekeeping force, and that's fair dues, I think. But I don't know if he means as an attack force, or whether he's there as a peacekeeping force. But
no, I don't think so. I'm trying to think. I know that I've read some things where he has said putting their life on the line, and as a peacekeeping force, are they putting their life on the line? I'm not so sure, but I support what you say, because you only take out the things what you're looking for, and I'm probably doing what I say that I don't do, which is I find it difficult to look for positive things about him. So I'm kind of
when you know he's full of shit.
Yeah. It's difficult to find positive things. Tell me something positive that's connected to him.
He's got nice hair.
I can't think of anything positive that he's actually done. that I'm aware of anyway. But
Yeah, I think, to be fair, I think I've been looking for the negatives as well, though.
if he was to do something positive, then you would think that they would get it out there quickly. He would be
Yeah.
shouting from the rooftops about, look, I've done this, I'm all right now. But there isn't anything. It just
There's
one bad thing after another.
I should really follow the Disney. I can't remember which. I think it might have been in Bambi or something like that. And there's and Walt is quite interesting. If you look at Walt's history, and actually what's happened with history with Disney, but if you look at Walt actually, as he grew older, he became more of a conservative. But in Bambi, it says if you can't say anything positive, don't say anything at all. If you can't say anything good, don't say anything at
Yeah.
all. I think that's the mother's lesson to Bambi. I was like, that's probably the thing to do. And if you learn how to do that, then tell me how.
Well, I agree with a lot of these old sayings. We all knew them when we were kids. Sometimes we didn't really know what they meant till we got older, but we got them said to us so many times. But I don't know. There's nothing we can actually do about it. We can talk about it. When it comes to politics, you need to keep an open mind. You can't actually make a solid statement.
You can vote reform, brother.
Well, I've already at the last election voted reform.
Yeah, I did the same.
I make my own mind up about things, and to do anything before you do something, you have to be prepared to be wrong and assess the situation. And it's like the COVID vaccines. I sat down with my family and said, I've been doing a lot of work on this, and I don't think we should have the vaccine. None of us had the vaccine. And I don't mean to say, ha 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 ha. I did a lot of work on, well, not just me, but my wife as well. We, oh, it wasn't a decision that we took through just sheer not wanting to conform. It was done because we did a lot of investigation.
A lot of research. Well,
We,
you're all right, and you feel healthy, and
yeah, and we felt that herd immunity was. It turned out that it wasn't as bad as it was. I mean, if you go onto the government, believe it or not, you go onto the government website, and there's a lot of information in there that was contradicting what they were actually saying. I mean, see if you go and look at all the old Spanish flu and swine flu and all the rest of it, and look at the graphs, you can see they all start off up here, and they all start to fizzle out. Every one of them, because I think it was explained that a virus, it only has one thing to do, and that's to live.
mm-hmm.
If it is too severe, it will reduce itself because it doesn't want to kill the host, because it knows that if it kills the host, it kills itself. So it's harder to catch it when it's deep into the lungs. But as it becomes less lethal, it comes further up and you don't have to cough it out. It gets to the point where you can breathe it out, but it's less. I'm only telling you what I read. This is just one.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
It becomes more contagious, but less lethal. And then things started to come out about when you look at the figures and all the rest of it. There's a huge difference between people that die with COVID and the people that died of COVID that they didn't talk about, and just things like that where it was obvious that we were being manipulated, and the people who stood up against it were ridiculed so bad.
I know, and it's all coming. It's all coming out now. It's all coming out,
You
and
could,
it will continue to come out.
but that doesn't do any good. The fact of the matter is, what the worst thing that's come from it is that nobody trusts the governments anymore.
Yeah, that's the thing. It's hard to know who to trust.
But nobody trusts them now. And whatever they're going to try and do, everybody's going to doubt it. And if we did truly get something happen, people wouldn't take it just because they've been lied to before.
You've got to be absolutely transparent. You've got to be absolutely transparent. That's why I like the orange fella.
Yeah,
over there.
I would
Changing the subject.
Go on.
Sorry, mate. Sorry for interrupting. Changing the subject. It was a lot easier when these were in the charts.
No idea who that is.
No, I know that that's a lie. I bought these. I bought these. These are my old man's originals.
Yeah.
So I knew that it's like, right, here we go. Here we go.
Yeah.
Led Zepp 2. Do you know what the funny thing is? Go on.
Best albums. For me, it is.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I'm stuck between Led Zepp. Well, I like all three of them. Led Zepp 1, 2, and
yeah,
4.
Well, there's good songs on them all. I think the older I get, the better they get, if that makes sense. When you listen to the music as a youngster, it's a but then there's actually, as you start to get older, you see what there's something in there. I suppose it's the same with all music, isn't it? I love music. I spent too much time and money when I had a few quid on music systems, for instance. When I was living in Basingstoke, and I bought a Lynn system. I don't know if you know what a Lynn system is.
No.
It's pretty much the Rolls Royce of home hi-fi. It was a lot of money, but it was worth every penny. When you switch this thing on, it's like the band's there. And to this day, that was 30 years ago now. To this day, your average system still doesn't sound nearly as good as this old system.
Oh, there's so much effort in terms of the valves, and it's stuff that's way over my head. I mean, I'm going back to collecting vinyl. That's actually not an original, I'm ashamed to say, but those other two are my old man's. And do you know what? When everyone else was getting into Duran Duran and Guns N' Roses in the late 80s, me and my mate Stu Prestige were playing Led Zepp 1 and 2.
Yeah.
And I can even tell you the songs that it tripped on. Bit of Jerry Rafferty.
Yeah, Jerry Boy.
Do you know? Right, I'll show you something. Here's a little bit of anorak thing, and maybe one day I'll share this with Jeremy Clarkson. Is it on this one? I think it's on the other album. You'll like this. Nice bit of anorak knowledge for you. Right, so this is Night Owl, Jerry Rafferty, yep. Night Owl. So this has got on here Night Owl. It's around the same recording time as Baker Street.
Yeah.
Have a look at the sleeve on here.
Just a second.
Get your glasses on.
Oh, you're right.
You can see what it says. Chipping Norton Studios.
Oh, yeah.
That says. So you ever heard of Clarkson's Farm?
Yes. Is that Chipping?
Jeremy Clarkson's thing. Yeah, it's in Chipping Norton. And that's where this was recorded. It was recorded in Chipping Norton Studios. As you go through Chippy, you're going through... Because you know chipping it's like Cheapside. Chipping, if a town says Chipping, it stands for marketplace. Chipping and Cheapside both mean marketplace, a market town. And if you go through Chippy, like the town hall, well, the monument, whatever it is, and then you go down the hill and round to the right, it was down there. It turned into a woolen mill, I think, in later years, but that's where it was. So yeah, Jerry Rafferty's album was recorded in Chippy.
Bigger than he was, Jerry Rafferty. He was in Steelers Wheel, wasn't he?
That's right. Yeah.
He was also in the Humble Bugs or something with Billy Connolly.
Ooh, yeah, that's right. Yeah.
Yeah, I can't remember the name of the band. I think it was something stupid.
Yeah.
But he didn't want all the fame and some of his music was really good. He wrote some really good stuff.
There's two albums that I've got. So this one's Night Owl, and the other one's City to City. There's another one called, I think it's called The Judge. It's got like some dice on the front of it. I'm wanting to say, I can't remember the name of it. There's four albums that have got the same sort of artwork, and I want to get the other two albums. So that's going to be, yeah, my next
Well,
my next acquisition.
I don't have any vinyl left. I spent a lot of time. I'd order records. I used to buy, because I had a good system that you could hear the quality from. I used to buy direct cuts. I don't know if you know what a direct cut is.
No.
Your general thing was a pressing. Yeah, the vinyls would be pressed. Then you had a cut which came from the actual master tape. All right, and they cost a lot of money. But if I'd go and buy an album and it would cost, I don't know, £4 or £5. And if I really, really liked it, I would go and buy a direct cut. But I was telling you about all the photographs and all the memorabilia. It was all burned in a fire. All my everything.
God.
Everything.
God. Well, listen. Next time if you're down in England, if you're swinging down, then you're welcome to come down, mate, and we'll play some bit of Led Zeppelin on.
Well, hopefully, if things go to plan and I get a few coaching jobs and one thing or another, then I'll be down more often than not. I don't think it shouldn't be really that hard for me to get some work. As long as there's got to be people out there looking for a mad Scotsman. However,
well, a mad Scotsman that knows what the fuck he's doing.
Well, I kid people on that I do. What is it? A broken clock has to be right twice a day.
On that note, Bryce, it's great to catch up with you again, man.
Yeah.
For people that want to get their something powder coated or cleaned up or whatever you do,
Restore and coat. It's I think it's .com. Dear oh dear, I'm not very good, am I?
I'll put a link in the description on YouTube anyway.
Yeah.
And I'll put a link to that.
Yeah.
If anyone, if looking for someone that doesn't, well, I mean, fuck me, man, I couldn't recommend you high enough in terms of getting the psychological side sorted and basically getting things straight and narrow and pointing things in the right direction. So
that's what it's about. Yeah. Well,
top man.
Excellent.
Thanks, Bryce.
Thanks much for your time.
Great to catch up with you again, man.
Going to go and listen to some Led Zeppelin now.
Good lad. Keep it pinned, mate.
Excellent.
Well, I should just say, by the way, and this is, so I'm in Frankfurt and I'm drinking a Raderburger. I don't even know what this is. It's some German beer, but I'm sat in a fucking hotel in Frankfurt. So we spoke for about another half an hour after we finished the call.
Yeah.
Just because it was, obviously we like speaking to each other. And then literally, I'm just looking at how long we've just spoken a second ago for another 55 minutes.
Well, I expected that. That was why I was saying to you to start at 10 o'clock. The last time we finished at 10 minutes to 12.
Yeah.
And started at 8 o'clock. And I thought, I can't do that tonight. I'm gubbed.
Yeah.
I mean, I am getting on a bit. I mean, I'm nearly 40-year-old now.
Are you? I thought I put you down as 41, actually.
The check's in the post.
Oh, so there was two stories. So right, so we covered talking about your racing career, and this is I don't know what this thing is, and we're just talking, and and it's kind of fallen into the habit of tell me about your racing career, tell me where you started, blah 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 blah. And one of the things you said is I didn't tell you any of the stories, And you told me an absolute perler of a story from a kart circuit I'd never heard of. I didn't even know there was a kart circuit. So tell that story again. Tell the location, because it's just...
Well,
Go on, say it
Morecambe
again.
was a circuit that was right on the beach. It was a cliff face, and there was a barrier run down one side, and it was pretty much two long straights. You came down a steep hill like Rowra to start. It went down into a dip, and it started to rise, and it went down pretty quickly. It started to rise. The start finish line was there. There was a kink to the left, and then you went into a right-hander up a really steep hill. Right-hander, and then you came down a long. It was a 250 circuit, basically.
Right.
Down this long straight, and it was quite steep.
Was in 250 kart, as in gearbox kart?
Yeah, sorry, yeah.
Yeah, yeah. So it's like a long circuit, as we'd just say back in the day, right?
At that time, they weren't quite long circuits. It was a class 1 with an engine on the other side, and I mean, we're talking quite a long time ago. It was in the days of Bultaco, and I don't know if you've even heard of that.
I have heard of them. Yeah.
Okay, so that was the circuit. There wasn't really. You had to be very good on the two corners. That was about the size of it.
It was just like, what, 2 hairpins and...
Well, no, it was 1 hairpin and then a right-hander that went up a steep hill, really steep, and another right-hander. You went about 30 yards, and then another right-hander, and you came down this long hill. And at the top of the hill, you could actually see the beach, which was about 200 feet down off the cliff face, but there was a wooden barrier that stopped you from going down there, or was supposed to. But I can remember just a young lad, a junior, hadn't long started. I can't remember. It was my first season, early doors, and final came. We were racing and in the lead, and every single time I'd get into the lead, the guy coming back down the hill, obviously had another sprocket on, he would just come past, just drive past, no effort. He could pull in and brake for the hairpin. I was gubbed, and as soon as we came out the hairpin to go back up the hill, I'd pass him again. Every single lap this happened, and I'm saying, I'm going round here, and I'm going to get whopped. I need to do something. And at that time, I wasn't into... I've never really been into taking people out or whatever, but there's all sorts going through your head. It was like you could see this coming, and there was nothing you could do about it.
Yeah, it's almost like a slipstreamer at Monza or at Snetterton back in the day when you used to go through like Rich's Sear. It's like you don't want to be leading onto the last lap there.
Well, the problem was it was inevitable what was going to happen, because I was getting past him going up the hill, but I didn't pass him till after the start-finish line. So unless he made a big mistake, it wasn't going to happen. And I can remember thinking, I got an idea. I thought it was like a brilliant idea. So he was always coming past me, 3/4 way down. It was a long straight, as I was saying. And I can remember he came alongside me and he looked at me. He just, with that it felt like a really smarmy look and all the rest of it, because it was the last lap and he was just about to win. And I leaned across and I just went bop and choked his carburetor. Whoosh! And I thought, brilliant! Down through the hairpin, he's behind me. I won. And it was like, I was waiting on when I got back to the pits, like my old man being really buzzing and happy. Oh, I got doing for impeding another driver or whatever it was. I didn't realise that my old man had got shit off everybody standing there, but I can remember I got shit off him. However, I still won the race and whatever, and I can remember.
Did you get to keep the win?
Yeah, they let me keep the win. It was ungentlemanly. The dads were saying it was ungentlemanly, and it was because everybody saw it. I honestly didn't think I was doing anything wrong. I thought that I'd thought outside the box. It was really clever.
Yeah.
And we gets to the gate as we're going out in the car, and there was silence in the car. And we're driving away, and my old man turned and looked at me, and I was waiting for it, and he went, "Brilliant. Fucking brilliant." I didn't know what to think. He says, that was excellent to watch. He says, I got some shit, he says, but I would do it again. It was brilliant. And that was the best bit for me of the whole thing.
Yeah.
I think it was the fact that I came up with I came up with an idea. It maybe wasn't the best idea in the world, but it got the result, if you know what I mean. And I don't know, would I do it again? Of course I would.
Brilliant. Amazing.
Good one.
That was brilliant. And didn't you say something like along the lines of, well, why did you bollock me?
Oh, that's right. That's what happened. He said to me, I said, what did I get a bollocking for? Why was it a big deal? And that was when he said, it was good. It was good. I did get a bollocking when I came in. I was shocked. I was disappointed because I was waiting for, like, I'm a hero. I'd won, and I'd won by using ingenuity and whatever, and it was just the opposite. I felt deflated. But inside there was still that wee thing going, oh, God, I'm fucked.
And then you say something like that, and he goes, oh, why did you bollock me? That was for them.
Yeah,
that was for them.
That's it. Why did you bollock me? Yeah, that was for them. Did I tell you that?
Yeah. That's. I was just like, when you told me that the other night, I've got to get that story. I've got to get that story on film. Well, that was absolutely priceless.
I'm trying to think what I told you rather than think about what happened.
Yeah. Well, there's another one, right? And I've retold this story a few times. Like, this is the genius of Bryce Wilson, right? And you may or may not remember this.
Oh,
so PF, I can get into trouble, but it's fucking brilliant as a story. And I was just like, that was so clever. So PF, it was the race that you came to, and well, I don't know if it was the race that you came to do when you went, literally, we were all within like a gnat's nidger of each other, fighting for a national, Super One championship, and you came up and you were just like up the road. Oh, fucking hell, who's this old boy? And then, but I think it was in that one race where, so PF used to be before. Do you know it goes under the? Well, it goes under a bridge now.
Yeah.
But when it first opened, it was like start finish line, then it was a like 90 right into another 90 right, or it was just one long corner,
and then it went down. Like Rye House top corner type thing.
Yes, correct. Yeah. It was, yeah. And then it went into the hairpin that's still there now. So that hairpin, something happened. Now whatever draw that I got, it was just one of the heats, so it was kind of luck of the grid draw, and I was somewhere, I don't know, 10th or something in the pack, and you must have been behind me. So going to like the second corner, and then going into after that hairpin, then there's a left-hander, and then we're just going into the chicane, a red flag. And I'm like, it might have, it maybe through the chicane, maybe into, it was been a little bit longer. It's probably 20 seconds or so after I've gone through the first hairpin. Red flag. So, red flag. Okay. So came round and then looked to start. I think we stopped on the start-finish line and looked across, and there was this cart that was upside down. It's upside down. Oh, fucking hell, someone's rolled it. Right, okay. So, now you're remembering this one, aren't you?
No, I don't remember.
Yes, you do. Yes, you do. So
no.
I remember talking to you, and I can't remember if it was on the same weekend, but I remember you telling me it's like, yeah. I was involved in that, but I managed to get restarted. I was like, how the fuck did you manage to get restarted? He said, and remember you saying that. See how I've just said? He said. I was going to tell this story.
Well,
like, remember you said, go on, tell the story of what you did.
It was actually the final.
Was it?
Yeah, and I think I'd won 2 heats.
Right.
We broke a rotary valve in one of the heats.
Okay.
So I started about, I don't know, 12 or something on the grid.
Yeah.
Middle field. And there was a bit of a scramash in front of me coming into that hairpin. And I wasn't involved in it.
Yep.
I'd decided to go to the outside because it looked like the scramash was going in the way, and a cart darted out from it, and I had to stop.
Yeah.
My race was over. But then another car had gone upside down.
Yeah.
And I thought, oh, how lucky can you actually be? So the guy's foot was sticking through the bumper, and he went to push it off him, and I jumped out the car to help him, obviously, and I kept his foot through the bumper. I kept a hold of him, and I'm saying, "Stay still, we'll get it off you. Stay still. Your foot's twisted through the." And he's listening to me. Poor guy. I mean, he wasn't in pain or anything like that.
No.
But everybody looking on, this cart was upside, and the guy's foot was sticking through the bumper.
Yeah.
And as soon as the red flag came out,
didn't you wave your hand in the air to encourage the red flag?
Yeah. I'm going like this, and then the red flag came out. And as soon as the red flag came out, we lifted the cart off the guy. I mean, it wasn't as if it was just upside down on top of him. Nothing major. So then bump started and came round to the grid. And what's this? Who was the clerk of the course? Clayton.
Steve Clayton. Now, I'm friends with Steve Clayton on Facebook, so I hope to God he sees this. Yeah,
well, I can remember it clearly. He said to me, "You can't restart. You were involved in the accident." I says, "I'm sorry, Steve, but you're wrong." And he was kind of surprised. I says, "You'll probably find, if you ask the marshals, that I wasn't involved in the accident. I saw that the guy was upside down as I was behind him." I says, and I stopped. I says, I stopped. The track looked like it was going to be blocked anyway, and I took it for granted, the size of the accident, that the race would be stopped. I says, and I helped the guy. And he went away, and if you remember, it was held up for a long time.
Yeah, it was, yeah.
He spoke to this one and that one, and all the rest of it, came back and said, right, okay, you can start again in your original grid position. Want to watch. I went on and won it.
Did you win that race? Because
I
remember my card went off for in that race. So you won that race, did you?
Yeah.
Brilliant.
We won that from a lucky situation.
Yeah, it was like
else's bad luck, but it was. Well, that's what it's about. You've got to capitalise on everything.
It was just brilliant. It was so quick thinking doing that, and it was something that I would never have even considered. But it shows kind of the experience. But I was just like, that was fucking genius. Well, was absolute genius.
Some people would say that. Some people would say it's very ungentlemanly. It's not right. It's. I don't care. At the end of the day, it's about winning, and that's probably the closest thing to the bone that I've done. I've done lots of bits and pieces, but after that, I thought to myself, that lad could have been hurt. He wasn't, and I kind of knew he wasn't. But
yeah,
that was as far as I was prepared to. But that was my first race back after many, many years away, and my brain was rusty.
You made us all look like a bunch of knobs, basically. You did. You literally rocked up.
Oh, dear.
This whole bike turns up and just blows us all away.
Well,
it's just like, and that's when Paul Carr said, You've all got a lot of work to do.
Well, it's the same old story. My old man used to always say that you don't need to be good when you're as lucky as Bryce.
Oh, mate, that was the best
No,
story ever.
there's plenty stories like that. Trying to think about them is the hardest thing, but I watched a lot of karting before I started racing, and
Right, yeah.
it's like anything else. You've got your drivers that make you go across to the pit wall and watch, even though you're not in their race. Or it was normally seniors that, when I was racing, it would be seniors that I would watch.
Yeah.
And you would make a point of going and watching that driver because you liked him or he did things. Well, why do you like anybody? For me, I love and respect when somebody does something that I don't think I can do. And
I
as
was
a
just about
youngster,
to say exactly the same thing.
a lot of people shun away from that. But that, to me, I think watching before I started racing helped me a lot. I mean, there's one or two things in my whole life that had an influence on, maybe three things, influenced me into wanting to drive. And I can remember sitting on my dad's knee in the sitting room watching Jim Clark at Brands Hatch. And the front wheel of the car was a mile in the air, and it was like, oh, the guy was on fire. Honestly, it was. I was very small, 5 years old or something, but I can remember it clearly. And I can remember I must have been 8 or 9 at Rye House. My older brothers were racing, and I watched this guy, and I'd seen him before, and there was something about him. He was different to the rest. He did things differently. He was only a young guy. He could only have been about 16, 17. He wasn't the most liked guy, but I think it was more jealousy on other people's parts because he wasn't part of the club because he was still a young lad. And at that time, to be part of the club, you had to be older and you've earned your stripes. But this young lad was a bit special. And it was at Rye House, and this one incident kind of made me sit up and go, there is another way. I don't know if did you race at Rye House?
Yeah, I did a few races
Right.
round there.
At Rye House, when you came out of the corner at the pit corner, the
Yeah.
bottom corner,
Hmm.
did it go straight up or did it have the chicane in it? Or like the wee hairpin?
No, so it used to go.
You'd come out of the pit
Yeah,
corner,
it used to be a sort of. I think it was like a
right,
90
and then
right
a
onto.
hairpin. There was a hairpin, and then you came back out the hairpin. Yeah?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
I remember watching this guy. He came out of the pit corner right up the guy's arse. And the guy kept it tight going through the right for a good run coming out the hairpin. And he just slotted straight up inside him. And he just took the place. He didn't pass him. He just took the place. Job done.
Mm-hmm.
Never touched nothing. Another one down. You might recognise his name. That was one thing that really influenced me into there is another way to do this. His name was Fullerton, Terry Fullerton.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't think I've ever been seriously impressed by anything like that before. As I say, I wasn't even racing at that age. But that had an effect on me that it was like, whoa,
Yeah.
I want to do that.
Those guys that can do something. Funny enough, Bryce, I remember going to watch. I think it would have been. This would have been a Super One qualifier when I first went there. I did my very first go-karting experience with Gary Chapman, Pro Train
All right.
Racing.
Yeah.
I reckon that'd have been 1990, and he's still going. He's still training people. Is Gary? I haven't spoken to him for a good number of years, but I know Steve Dietz is involved with him occasionally. But I remember going to watch I think it was a Super 1 qualifier, and the guy who stood out to me on exactly the same corner, funnily enough, and the first impression was watching Jenson Button with his black and yellow helmet that he had back then, with the number 1 plate, which he got in Junior TKM. And I think it was one of his final races in Junior TKM before he went to Junior Britain. And I just remember seeing the kid, and he was so smooth and so accurate, and he got such a good reputation that I'd read about in Karting magazine. And I was watching this guy, I was like, that guy has just got, he was just like a work of art in motion. He was just so efficient, so accurate, so smooth. So talking about the people that I used to watch, so you'd always go and watch a Junior Britain race, but in particular watch Jenson, even when he was in Formula A and he wasn't doing particularly that well, he just had something about him. And I was like, and back then you didn't even know if he was going to go into cars or anything, but I thought that kid's got something special, and particularly in the wet.
I think, in all fairness, there's lots and lots of people out there that are good. There's lots and lots of people who are very good. But when somebody special comes out the box, you can't ignore it. It stands out like a sore thumb. And a lot of people hate them, and a lot of people love them. And I don't know. I think people who tend to, they know they can't do what they're doing, they don't like them if they believe they'll never be able to do it. The ones that look at it and go, I've just learned something from that, I'm going to do that. They normally go on with these people, if you know what I mean. There was a respect there. I stole so much from watching people. But at the end of the day, you only see what you're looking for. If you're just watching a race, for instance, you're not if you're following something and reading it, you learn to read. You can tell when a driver's going to go past, or not, or this is going to end in tears or whatever. That's part of reading, and reading is such a big part of a race. When you're in the car or the cart, it needs to be planned. Although you're not sitting there with a list writing down, I'm going to do this. It's all instinctive and all the rest of it. But you are planning it. You are reading it. You're building your plan based on the reading, which changes every millisecond. That makes sense. But I think, in all fairness, the only other thing that influenced me to want to go into cars, that was to do with karts. But this is I don't know if I should tell you this. The thing that made me want to go into cars was my oldest brother, Tom. He used to buy a magazine called Motorsport. And some Grand Prix had been on. And there was a picture of the grid. And it had the pit dollies. The girls with the poles. And the girl that was holding I must have been 15 or something. The lassie that was holding the board for pole, I fell in love with her, and I wanted to be a racing car driver. It wasn't a race. That was the thing. That was the initial made me start looking at cars. Was
amazing.
It's ridiculous.
I can pull fit, but there's fit birds involved with this.
Don't put that one.
I can't not put that one, mate. That's a great way to. Well, let me just go back to this. Let me go back to this one thing, because this is something that I think is true, and I'll try and shoot from the hip. So, no. So, my father-in-law, I don't. Sorry, my ex-father-in-law,
right,
spoke very highly about you. His daughter raced in your team for the one race, and the one and only race where I raced at the same time, Amanda Whitaker, right?
Yeah.
Ron Whitaker. And I remember talking to him and him telling the time when this fella rocks up at Croft in an F2 car and blows the opposition away. And I suspect, and you can think about this tomorrow morning, that you were one of those people. I don't know whether you might appreciate that or not, but that certainly is how I looked at you when you rocked up and blew us away at PF. And so, yeah, I thought you were something special and are something special.
I don't, for me to say, I know what you're talking about, or whatever, is me being full of shit. But I do think I had a little, something a wee bit special. But I also had the ability to make bad decisions outside of the car. Not truly. If you put me in a situation where I have to make an instinctive decision, 99 times out of 100, I'll get it right. You give me time and lots of options, and I tend to get it wrong. I overthink things.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm,
mm-hmm. When I'm in a car or a car, it doesn't. It just seems to happen.
Do you think you could get the same
I'm not
thing
in control.
from? Do you think you could get the same thing from engineering or coaching?
I think coaching and somewhat engineering, but mostly coaching, is you've got to be instinctive to understand. There's when you're telling a pupil something, there's 99 roads in to get this information in, but there's only one of them that you can do it quickly, and your instinct and knowledge of that driver, the more you get to know him, and this reading thing, like being a driver, you know that that's the road to get in there, and I only tell him this once or maybe twice, and it'll be in. And if you're just coaching somebody and telling them things, you're going to get the wrong road. So yes, I think that when you're coaching, the instincts come out because you become focused, and it's about doing a job.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
The job, not a job. It's about doing the job. Big difference.
Yeah. Well, we were talking about, again, something that we didn't talk when I was actually recording, was the job that you did on that Ligier from taking. So I raced against you in 2008, 2009, and the Ligier at the time wasn't as quick as the Norma that we were racing against. And this is like pre-carbon days, right?
Yeah.
So it was
no, it wasn't nearly as good a car.
And the work that you did on that as a test driver come engineer on your car to it's like fucking hell, he's getting quicker, and each time you get quicker. And we were trying to banging our head against the wall a little bit because it's like, God, he's found something. And
I think I've always been good at development. I mean, I was quite old when I finished up with Nissan, for instance. I was there a long time, and I did a lot of development work there because I was good at it. I don't know. It's quite strange. I can go out and drive at my normal level, 100% say, and do the lap or the 2 laps or however many laps it is I've got to do, and not think about what the car's doing at all. Not 1 iota. I can come back into the pits and you can ask me a question and I'll tell you in detail exactly what happened. I could just bring it back up again. And I can also say to you, that quick lap I did, forget that. Because that lap I found by accident a new way over there. So don't count the lap time. That's not correct. And I'll then go back to testing the car. Or
Yeah,
now
what
the
the
car
car is
will
actually
allow
doing.
me to go onto another line that the line is quicker. It's not necessarily the car that's quicker. That line is quicker, but the car is now allowing me to go to that line. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it makes total sense.
Yeah.
Well,
I could explain that to them so that they. I mean, I had some good engineers as well, and I think that's. I understand why F1 drivers take their engineers with them, because it's although the words you'll use are, for instance, if it was us, it would be English. But there's another language inside that where it's the emphasis on words that an engineer needs to pick up on. Yeah, I mean, you've got when I'm breaking into here and I'm turning in, the expression on the face is he learns to read that as pain, and it's not good.
yeah,
So he knows that the problem's starting there, not there. You get to know your driver. It's the language of emphasis words and emphasis expressions all become part of test and development.
And working so closely with that driver. Well, mate, that was the longest one more thing.
Yeah.
But it was fucking brilliant. And
well, I hope it
so
wasn't.
thank you.
It was worth phoning me up for. You're still not recording now, are you?
I am. But we're gonna be finishing off then. So I couldn't not put those stories in because that was fucking epic. Well, listen, yeah, it's
I'll
late.
say what I said the last time, and you can't put this in. Just
okay.
don't make me look like a dick, please. I do a good enough job of that myself.
Mate, that was brilliant. Well, listen, thank you, Bryce.
Touch.
Yeah, I will do, mate. Well, I'll just call you non-podcast
you're
stuff.
You're welcome to call me anytime. And the thing that I sent you earlier today, I actually thought about that quite a lot, and I tried to write it in a way that I hoped it would make sense to you, and you would take a step back and look, and come to your own decision about it.
Yeah,
but the right decision, long term, not short term. I'd hate for you to have something that looks like it could be so good, spoiled by something so stupid.
Yeah.
And I'll say no more.
Top man, Bryce. Thank you very much. Have a good evening, mate.
All right,
cheers,
then,
pal. Leave the recorder. Yeah, I will do. Leave the recorder open just for a few seconds while it uploads.
All right then.
Cheers, mate.
Cheers now. Ta-da.